All right, it is drive time, Tuesday afternoon style. 11 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Cloud coverage here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah, but the heat continues. We are high speed ahead to some cooler temperatures throughout the course of the end of the week and through the weekend. As we sit here now, it is 94 degrees in downtown Salt Lake. Maybe some rain coming up tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, with temperatures dropping into the low 80s, which will be a nice little change. As fall is on its way, we are creeping closer and closer to mid-August. And, of course, that means college football. That means NFL football and a lot to do on the program today. Hello, how are you? Happy Tuesday. This program is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That is my name. We appreciate you making this program a part of your day today and every day. Porter Larson producing the show today. A ton going on. Some interesting stuff from Kalani Sitake, head coach of BYU, former defensive coordinator at the University of Utah, on our sister station with Ben Criddle. Of course, Ben is a former BYU player and hosts his own show, his BYU-centric show. And a lot of noise about Brian Santiago, the athletic director for BYU. Brian has been on this show multiple times, most recently during Big 12 Media Days. His hiring was met with a mixed reaction, as I always try to do. I try to be fair and based off of just individual interactions. Brian's always been very nice to me. He's always been good to give us time. Even though he's the BYU AD and we're the Utah station, he's always willing to come on and talk about BYU athletics. But I don't know that I've ever heard Kalani talk like this, and there are a lot of interesting dynamics here that we're going to get into. We're going to play the clip for you coming up in just a little bit. It is about 3 minutes long. Essentially, it's Kalani talking about the resources needed to win, and we'll juxtapose this to the interview we did with Kalani during Big 12 Media Days, where he basically talked about the Penn State situation. And to paraphrase, he said, I just needed to know that BYU wanted to commit to football, and they showed me that they did want to commit to football. And the comments he made, I think this was yesterday to Ben, indicate maybe some of those promises were not necessarily delivered, at least not yet. Now, Brian Santiago is known as a basketball guy, and we all know that they're spending a lot of money on basketball, paying their coaches and paying their players a lot of money, including the number 1 overall pick, A.J. Dubonsa. So we'll bring this on the show today because I found it very, very interesting. Obviously, week 2, Camp Scally going on up on the hill. University of Utah football program getting ready for September the 3rd when Idaho is in town. 3 non-con games, then we'll launch into conference play. We talked yesterday about the dynamic of Joel Klatt, known Utah fan, not having Utah in his top 25, having Oklahoma State, Arizona, Houston, BYU, and Texas Tech as his five teams out of the Big 12 in his top 25. And Joel Klatt uttering the phrase, I used to say death taxes in Utah football. What I meant was death taxes in Kyle Whittingham, as he has Michigan as a top 10 football team in the landscape of college football. So that was yesterday. Today, Stuart Mandel, Bruce Feldman, the guys over at The Athletic on their podcast, all took the under as far as win total for Utah. The win total for Utah is 8.5 in most places. And all 3 of the hosts, Bruce Feldman, Stuart Mandel, and their third host, who I can't remember his name, but they all took the under for Utah. BYU win total 9.5. 2 of them took the over. 1 of them took the under. So, look, if we're honest here, preseason polls are irrelevant, and they always have been. And if we're honest here, preseason polls in this day and age of college football couldn't be even – they're less relevant now because one-year turnarounds are so commonplace, and there's so many teams, certainly in the Big 12. There will be, I'll say at least 2, if not 3 Big 12 teams that are way better than anybody expected, and a couple that aren't even close to being as good as we thought that they would be. That's the nature of this sport. If we're honest, it's always been the nature of the sport, and even more so right now than it ever has been. So we'll get to some college football storylines. NFL training camp continues, and unfortunately, more injuries. Kobe Bryant, Chicago Bears safety Kobe Bryant, COBY for those uninitiated, underwent knee surgery today. He's going to miss 4 to 6 months. That is a big, big deal for the Bears. A lot of people, including our guy Ben Solak from ESPN, have talked about the Bears as a sneaky Super Bowl contending team. That is a big deal for them. So we'll get to some NFL storylines on the program after the first NFL preseason game was played last weekend. Did you even know that that happened? It was the Cardinals and the Panthers, their third and fourth stringers for the Hall of Fame game. Real Salt Lake faces a must-win game tonight against Juarez FC in Leagues Cup play. RSL needs to win tonight, and they need help in order to make it to the next phase of Leagues Cup. And then we're on to MLS play, the second half of MLS play. Xavier Gozo news has not been announced by the club, but it is all but official. Gozo is in London with his new club, Crystal Palace. Kurt Schmidt joined the show yesterday and basically opined about the plan now to utilize the resources that are in the back pocket of RSL to bring in more talent. And for soccer fans, that's what you want. You understand the decision for RSL to move the young man, but use the money to bring in players. Don't use the money to line the pockets. That's a bad look if you're ownership of RSL. So we'll see what they elect to do. Kyler Murray is your starting quarterback for the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy, once again, will start the season as the backup. So some good NFL news on the program today. How about schedule release day in the NBA, huh? I know what you guys want to talk about. You want to talk about schedule release day for the pro basketball. Knicks are going to face LeBron opening night because, of course, Philadelphia 76ers. You want to talk about Christmas Day NBA matchups? Let's get into it. We won't do a ton of NBA schedules, but we'll look at the Jazz schedule and see if anything stands out as it is schedule release day in the world of pro basketball. All right, good guest list. Matt Brown, Extra Points, one of our favorites. Professor Brown, I call him. He's not a professor. He just sounds like one. If you want to become more familiar with the business of college sports, what makes this thing work off the field, Matt Brown is the guy. He's going to join us right out of the gate. Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the U as a linebacker and now as an analyst and part of our broadcast team on the sideline. Sly's going to stop by. The voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. You're going to hear from Bill in the 4 o'clock hour, recorded Bill for the podcast for KUTV today called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. That will be released tomorrow. We have a new TV window. We have been on TV on Friday nights, but it's now high school football season, so our TV window is now Wednesday nights. I believe it's 9:30 on both KJazz TV and KMYU, so if you want to watch a live podcast, which, I mean, please do. I've just never, understood watching a podcast, but hey, please watch ours because it helps. So you'll hear from Bill in the 4 o'clock hour, and then Instagram influencer and EDM music fan Dave Fox will join us after you hear from Bill. So Matt Brown, Stevenson Sylvester, Bill Riley, Dave Fox, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and the producer of this program, noted college athletic financial expert, Porter Larson, on a Tuesday. What's up, man? How are you?
Yeah, not sure about that part, but
you heard,
I'm well.
You heard Kalani's comments.
I did.
What did you make of them?
I don't know because they don't tell us anything as far as the financials over there, even less than we hear over here, right? Part of being a private institution, but clearly Kalani has at least more demands or more expectations than what he got or was promised to get when he signed a big old extension and flirted a little bit with our friends in Pennsylvania. So clearly there's still something left to be wanted for Kalani and co. But that's also the nature of the game. Like, he could just do this forever, right? He could always put pressure on the institution and try to get more out of them, even if he is getting what he was promised. Maybe you just up the ante and keep doing it until you win a national championship. Maybe that's the MO. I'm not exactly sure, but there does at least seem to be, for a coach who is pretty calculated, a guy who's not just out there. It's not Mike Leach. It's not Mike Gundy who, let's just say, gets loose with his lips and kind of just spills the beans everywhere. Kalani's not that way. He says things when he wants to get them out there, and he is calculated in how he goes about it. So interesting to hear that right before kickoff. But it does feel, at least from his perspective, there's a little bit of pressure on the university to to help out the football team. Not that they're not getting help. You just want some more.
Yeah, and that's the deal now. I mean, and no one talks about this more than Witt, by the way. He's still talking about it at Michigan. It's like his thing. You know, every time he has a mic, he has something to say about resources, because if you don't have them, you don't have anything. But let's get to it. So we're going to play the sound for you. Time now on a Tuesday for your opening tip, brought to you by our friends at IFA Country Stores. Like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn as the hot weather continues this month. To make sure you're using IFA Step 3 Spring and Summer Lawn Food for healthy turf that stays green every season. IFA Step 3 Lawn Food, it is the ultimate lawn owner power move. All right, Porter, we got that sound ready? So in case you missed it, this was with our sister station, good friend of the show, Ben Criddle. I go on Ben's show all the time. Here's what Kalani had to say yesterday.
There's probably a collection of things that I'm looking at. It's like I think we've been we've been given the challenge of doing the most with the least, right? And so you lean heavily on culture to help you win. But I think there's a way that you can actually increase your chances on both. I think there's a way that you can get in deep culture and be really strong as a football team. And there's an opportunity that you can get to players that you normally wouldn't have access to. And so we're trying to develop them, and sometimes it happens in development with the right resources that you have, sports science and stuff that Dr. Main does, and stuff that our training room does with Brett and everybody. I mean, with Phyllis in the strength and conditioning room, and then all the resources that we have available to them. That's key. So it's a bunch of factors that go into it, but I still want more resources for these guys, because, and for me, the frustrating part is like, yeah, we've been able to do so much, and everyone's like, okay, they keep doing it, but we can do way more at a faster rate.
Yeah.
And when I sit in this situation and I actually see that, I'm not going to be the one that's making high demands. This is very simple demands of people that our opponents have in the conference, and not even Texas Tech, the others, right? So if we can get an even playing field with that stuff, then I should be able to do more, and so whether that means more NIL, rev share, stuff like that, that's one thing. But we're not going to be, I said before, we're not going to be the highest bidder, but I'd like to have access to stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's a reminder to the administration that you can count on us to do things right and be responsible with the finances to get the right program in place. And so so the 22 is like, sometimes you just you got to go through these things. You're like, okay, this is going well. And I've always just been appreciative of everything. But then when I look back at it, my agent tells me, hey, this is the stuff that everybody else has. It's like, we've been dealing with this. And this goes to like Lavelle, Croton, Bronco for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it just gives me a whole different appreciation for them. And I don't think the fans, I'm not trying to like get sympathy from everyone. I'm just trying to tell you guys how real it is. And the fact that we're this close to making the playoffs, it's like, come on, let's not make the same mistakes that we've made in the past overall. And then let's keep investing in BYU football. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be in the form of just one thing, which is where everything's paying players. It's just a lot of different factors that go into it. Just please. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. And I know it's real because the Penn State, the other schools that were talking to me, they kind of revealed it for me. And I'm not even asking for that stuff.
Yeah.
It's very simple stuff that's very attainable, and I'm trying to be selective here, but I see it hopefully gets there where we want.
All right, so here's what makes this interesting. Several things in there from Kalani, as the kids would say, saying the quiet part out loud. I find the Penn State drop really fascinating. I find my agent has told me what other coaches have very fascinating. I find the comment, I'm not even asking what Texas Tech gets. I'm asking what the others get, very interesting. Because really, this all flies in the face of what we have been led to understand about exactly the sort of hand that BYU has been dealt as a result of the new reality of the ability to pay players and, of course, the necessity to pay the coaches if you want them to stick around. Now, lost in the backdrop of what Kalani is saying is an unusual amount of noise coming from BYU and the ecosystem down there about Brian Santiago. BYU is pretty notorious about being very clandestine with messaging and being very careful about what leaks come from their building. It doesn't happen very often. They're actually very good at it. It's a lot like the way the Jazz operate. And as Porter alluded to earlier, Amy Donaldson came on our show a few weeks ago and was dynamic about this. Like, yes, BYU, private religious institution, therefore not beholden to public records release. They play in a conference that is backed up by public investment. Without the public investment, BYU would not be able to play in the Big 12. It simply is not, I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's fair that BYU or any of the other religious institutions do not have to be forthcoming about how they're doing this and where the money's coming from. Because simply it leads to questions about whether or not things are above board. When you're able to be secretive as a result of the religious cover because there's tax benefits and all the things that come into having a private institution not be beholden to the things that public institutions are beholden to. Because what we've been led to believe, and we have some reporting on this, according to one booster, Gordon Monson wrote a piece on this for the Trib a couple of years ago. The booster told Gordon, quote, "We are swimming in money down here." And look, the reality of the situation is we know they paid A.J. DeBonsa between $4 and $5 million. Now, they're able to kind of cover their tracks because maybe North Carolina offered A.J. 5.1, and therefore we're not the highest bidder. Well, you were among the highest bidders, and I can tell you, A.J. and his father, Ace, they're about one thing. They're about business. Okay? Ace has been able to raise A.J. to understand, like, we have an opportunity here to create generational wealth for our family because of your skill. And because of, quite frankly, who he is as a person, as a player. He's a worker. He's an awesome player. They developed a logo for AJ's shoe, and they retained ownership of the logo, kind of the Michael Jordan blueprint that he saw once upon a time, that his mother basically negotiated a deal with Phil Knight that said, we want a piece of every shoe that you sell of his. And it turned out to make the Jordan family billions of dollars, okay? The DeBonces would not have chose Brigham Young if he wasn't getting a check. Now, I know we're supposed to say, but Kevin Young develops players. Okay, great. Yeah, the BYU experience is awesome. Okay, cool. That's all that is fine and good. You would not be getting players if you weren't able to pay the players. And I don't know what BYU has to spend on talent. The reports that you hear is that there are two teams in the Big 12 that are financially in an awesome spot. Those two teams, according to everyone that covers the sport, they're Texas Tech and BYU. The other thing that makes this interesting with the backdrop of Brian Santiago being the athletic director and all of the rumors and the noise, and I want to be clear, I'm not reporting nor can I corroborate any of them, is that Brian Santiago is a basketball guy. He played college basketball. He plays golf with Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith. Most people believe he got the job because of his personal relationships to boosters and donors. Because everybody thought it was Chad Lewis's gig, okay? And I want to be a little careful here because we're going a little bit inside, but as Tom Homo was nearing the end of his era as athletic director, and Tom, by all accounts, did a hell of a job making sure that ship stayed afloat during independence and finding a conference home for them and negotiating TV deals to help them stay where they needed to stay while they were an independent football program and athletic department. For the most part, there was the West Coast Conference tie in basketball, of course. Most people thought that Chad Lewis was essentially waiting in the wings to get the job when Tom was done. And look, I come from a BYU Blue family, and I have family members that played sports down there and friends that played sports down there. All I'll say is, from my vantage point, a lot of people were very shocked when Brian got that job. And as I said earlier, Brian's been nothing but good to me. He's a friend of the show. He comes on the program. We've interviewed him, 3 or 4 times, including at Big 12 Media Days. But what I'm reading here, because again, to quote Kalani when he joined us during Big 12 Media Days, when Penn State came after him, what's clear now is they told him, this is what you will receive as the coach of Penn State. And it clearly wasn't only, okay, this is what we're going to pay you. It was clearly, this is also what you're going to receive in NIL resources to attract players. And what we're left to surmise is Kalani then went back to BYU and said, this is what they're offering me, okay? And obviously what Kalani is just saying, they were offering him something that was pretty substantial. And according to what he told us at Big 12 Media Days, he said to BYU, I need to know if you're going to commit to football. He said that they did. And now we fast forward weeks later, it's clear that they haven't met the expectations that he had, whether they're promises that were made that have not been delivered. But this is an interesting deal here because we're high speed ahead to the start of the season, and a lot of people believe BYU is going to win the Big 12. Now you've got some noise around an athletic director. Is he siphoning funds to the basketball program and not living up to what he told Kalani he would do? You have a head coach that is taking to the airwaves now that's clearly not happy with what he's receiving and is publicly asking you for more. And look, I'm a Kalani guy. I want to see him succeed. He's a great guy. And as I said, Brian Santiago has been good to me and good to the show. But this is a really interesting deal going down at BYU, so much so that a staffer took to a college football message board to try to squash these rumors, which I think is a really interesting thing. So we're going to catch a break, but Matt Brown will join us coming up next. Matt's going to be dynamic on this, I can promise you that. Stevenson Sylvester, Bill Riley, Dave Fox. Busy Tuesday show. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Week 2 of fall camp up on the hill. Camp Scally going on right now for the Utes. Camp Kalani going on right now for the Cougars, and Bronco Mendenhall and Utah State in action as well. But that's not the story that people are talking about today. Is Kalani Sitake went on our sister station yesterday with Ben Criddle and basically made a bit of a plea for more resources, which is catching a lot of people off guard, including me. And maybe including our next guest, who's good enough to join us on a Tuesday, our buddy Matt Brown from Extra Points. What's up, Matt? How are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing very well, and you're right. I have to admit, I was surprised to hear that remark as well, especially given the public flirtation with the Penn State job from Kalani, and when you add that to maybe a profoundly strange 72-hour news cycle around BYU athletics. There's a lot to make an outside observer go,
Yes, indeed. And that's kind of where I'm at, because we're left to read, between the lines a little bit and kind of read the tea leaves. But some of the comments I thought were very telling, and including, talking about the conversations he had with Penn State and basically them telling him, this is what you'll get if you come here. And he told us on this station during Big 12 Media Days, in response to the contract offer he received from Penn State, he simply went to BYU, and said, are you committed to football? And he told us the answer that came back to him was emphatically yes. So what we're left to surmise, Matt, is that clearly, and to your point, this is in the background of all of these strange rumors and rumblings about Brian Santiago, the athletic director, and he is a basketball guy. A lot of people believe he got the job as the AD because he's really good friends with Ryan Smith and Danny Ainge and others. But as you heard Kalani, and based off of the knowledge you have, and the problem is a lot of us don't have a ton of knowledge because they are a private institution, are you left to surmise that it maybe just be as simple as he is not receiving the resources and the promises he received are not being fulfilled as of now?
I think that is a possibility, and I wouldn't. I don't think anybody could be blamed for drawing that particular conclusion. It could be that they actually do have the resources that they need, and that coaches, Kalani and anybody else, are often unreliable narrators about what's actually necessary for them to compete. I've gotten to know a lot of coaches in a lot of different sports all across the country from doing this gig. And it's very rare that I talk to anybody that goes, yeah, we don't need any more money. We just got to execute. We just got to do our job as coaches, and we have everything here that we need. It's, this is not a value judgment of Kalani or any coach in particular, but as a profession, these are a group of people that are often wired to think that somebody on their schedule has $11 gajillion, and if they don't have those things, they'll never sign another recruit again. So some of this could just be, oh my gosh, the rumor mill told me that Texas Tech now has a rocket ship and they're going to recruit in space. And now we need to do these other things. Or it could be, I was promised X, Y, and Z, and we don't have it yet. Or there's something other than player salaries that we need in order to keep pace with this league, and we're not getting. The frustrating thing is that this, along with some of the other rumors, down south where you are, there's not really an easy way to verify any of this information. It's kind of a he said, she said, no one's going to publish the receipts, and then we'll just kind of see how it happens over the next couple of weeks.
We did see something a little bit unusual, and you pointed this out as well as some others, that a BYU staffer went to a college football message board to respond to these rumors about Brian Santiago. And look, as I've said since this kind of news cycle presented itself, I can't corroborate any of these rumors. I don't know. What I do know is somebody who comes from a tried and true BYU family and has family members that played sports at BYU and friends that played basketball and football at BYU. Most people thought Chad Lewis was in line for that job, and a lot of people were very surprised that Brian was the choice. But when it comes to these rumors and then the staffer taking to a message board, what are your thoughts on the way they've decided to handle this?
The reason I pointed it out on social media, after 3 or 4 of my friends texted me, because spoiler alert here, I'm not a regular Cougar Board reader, right? But people text me like, do you know anything about this? What's going on? And I've had a couple of other SIDs at other programs tell me in public or in private that they have done something like this before, but it's pretty uncommon. It's hard for me to imagine, somebody at Arkansas with their government name getting on Hogville and saying this is the official athletic department statement. Now, that doesn't mean that BYU is wrong, right? Part of your job as a university communications department is to go where your fans are. And if that is where your fans are, I get it. Could it have been maybe a more clear statement or descriptive statement in a perfect world? But you and I both know what it's like to get it, to get formal information out of BYU sometimes, especially on personnel matters. So it's weird. I can't recall a time where something like that's happened in my professional career. You would probably know better than I would. What I can say, I think what I'd be comfortable saying about the Santiago's job status in general. Number one thing that was unusual to me about the initial BYU athletic director search, something that I can't recall BYU doing often. So I had multiple industry people that I trust say, hey, they brought on a search firm for this. And my understanding was that part of the reason they brought in a search firm is they wanted to talk to a lot of people that aren't in college athletics, right? There's the list of all of the people who have some kind of senior athletic director role and a Temple recommend. It's like 9 guys, right? We could probably just sit here and go through our phones to probably name 7 of them. So as college sports change, you want to talk to people who are in the entertainment industry or in professional sports or corporate America or law. But they talk to a lot of people. I don't think you would do that if you absolutely 1,000% knew without a doubt that the guy that you wanted was already in the building. So whether it was doing your due diligence or something else, whatever, you make the hire that you make, and then you have a weirdly public, almost coaching search, coaching departure, which also doesn't really tend to happen at this school. Now you have this. What I do know is because there's not that many guys who can actually have this job and are qualified to do it and can meet the school's, the minimum qualifications. You're not going to fire somebody unless you have a really, really good reason. And you're especially not going to do it when they've only been on the job for, has it even been a year? Maybe a year. I kind of forget how time goes. So I would be surprised if there was some gigantic announcement happening in the next couple of days, whether it's from whole cloth, made up from whole cloth, or had an inkling of truth. I don't know, but it would surprise me if there was something dramatic that was going to happen before the start of football season, barring a very, very good reason.
Yeah, you're good to bring up the timing because, there are a lot of people that believe BYU is going to win the league. The coaches voted them as the team to win the Big 12 with the quarterback stuff going on down at Tech. But I wonder if I could follow up, and you just kind of laid out some of the dynamics that could be the answer to this question anyway, but I'll follow up with a 2-parter. Do you have any insight as to why they ultimately landed on Brian Santiago? And what sort of rumors have you heard regarding the noise? Like, where is this all stemming from? Do you have any insight there?
My understanding is this is stemming from a message board, right? Or a message board or social media. I have not heard anything from any other reporter that I trust. I have not heard anything about Santiago or major disruptions in BYU's athletic department from people that I am connected to in the agent world or the search firm world, which doesn't mean that something, isn't going to happen. It's just that all of this conversation came to my attention and I think my colleagues' attention here through social media. And sometimes social media is right about this kind of thing, right? If you want to know who got a DUI somewhere, the internet's probably going to, a message board might tell you before a reporter does. But that's my understanding of where this is coming from. I can't speak directly to exactly why the school made any particular hiring decision. I know they interviewed a lot of people. I know they cast a really wide net. You kind of pointed this out too. Santiago's been there a while. He had a great relationship with the last AD. He's got a great relationship with important people in the basketball world. And my understanding is that some of the folks that they talked to who weren't in the college athletic space had lots of concerns, which I think would be justifiable. I don't want to get on the radio, especially if I'm 2,000 miles away in Illinois, and say, I think this guy's doing a bad job. they should fire him. Or I think this guy's doing a great job. I hesitate to do that even with ADs that I know really well, and I don't know Brian Santiago very well. The fact that this conversation is happening the way that it has feels unusual, and maybe it just feels unusual because I'm used to the AD at BYU being a nearly universally beloved figure, I guess, both on campus and in the industry.
We had Amy Donaldson from KSL join the show a couple of weeks ago. This was before any of this was happening. But we were talking about the dynamic of, BYU is a private religious institution, not beholden to a public records request the way that other schools are. And as you have outlined on this show several times, even the schools that are beholden to such requests oftentimes do not fulfill them. And there might be one a few miles away from us. We'll leave that there. But
there's more than one a few miles away from here, but one in particular, yes.
Sure. Amy made a really interesting point that, yes, BYU is a private institution, but the Big 12 is supported by public funding. It's a conference that does exist as a result of public investment. And her point was, if you're in the conference, you shouldn't be able to be clandestine about the things that your peers have to be transparent about. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I in many ways agree with her. This is feedback that I have shared with federal lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats. They're, whether they're the politician themselves or leaders within like Senate Commerce Committee and everything. I think that every single NCAA budget filing, the MFRS report, should be made public. It should be made free. It should be hosted on the NCAA website. If I got my hands on all of them, I would make that component free myself. Right now, it's just public schools, and I don't think there's a meaningful competitive advantage or disadvantage, realistically, from having that data out there. You don't need the PDF to know that Notre Dame is going to make a lot of money, and that some tiny private school in New Hampshire probably doesn't. But it would be more fair if everybody has to create this report anyway. They're already sending versions of it to the Department of Education, and that public institutions have different disclosure rules. It's also true that open records laws in this country vary enormously from state to state. As an example, in Texas, you can file open records requests and get the resumes of people who applied for a job. You can do the same thing in Wisconsin and in Iowa and in Ohio. You can get individuals' performance reports or HR complaints against them. My understanding in Utah is that you really can't get those things. So somebody could complain the same way they might about different NIL laws, like, oh my gosh, we're at a competitive disadvantage if we have to disclose something and somebody else doesn't. I don't think you can really fix, and there's good federalist reasons for having different state records laws. If I were in charge, and maybe this is a little self-interested of me as a reporter, but if I were in charge, I would say, if you're going to be a dues-paying member of the NCAA and participate in this, these are the bare minimum public disclosure requirements that everybody has to abide by, whether you're public, private, or in a state with weird open records laws like Pennsylvania or Delaware. But I mean, who's the constituency to demand that, right? It's me, Amy, and like 9 other reporter dorks. Like, we're not exactly people that can carry the Senate.
Do you think fans want to know? Do you think we'll just stay in the BYU space? Like, do you think BYU fans do want to know how the stuff is getting done behind the scenes, or do they just want a Saturday in the fall to feel like Saturday in the fall?
I mean, if we're being honest, I think the constituency in the Beehive State that is most interested in BYU's athletic financial report would be Utah fans, followed by curious reporters, and then some element of BYU fans. I could be wrong, but I bet if we went to the tailgate lot, most people are simply not going to care what BYU athletics reported spending on food or on recruiting travel, or on how many graduate assistants they have working as operations staffers. It's not exactly the kind of like financial colonoscopy audit that the U of U went through a couple of years ago. And it's not like you're going to be able to look at that data and have enough as an outsider to say there's financial malfeasance happening here, like there might be for the folks that file other lawsuits related to the church. It's really useful for reporters. It's also really useful for school athletic personnel and for other watchdogs and for people that are trying to evaluate whether they should take a job in one other place or benchmark their own salary. But I don't think most fans care, right? Like if anything, if I was to testify in the Utah Senate about the benefits and the glories of a strong and responsive grandma law, I would imagine there'd be a thread on Cougar Board saying this guy is trying to take away a competitive advantage for us. We don't want to know, right? Like if you really deeply cared about financial transparency and you're a BYU fan, like I imagine there's some squares you got to circle in some other places before you get to BYU football,
Fair enough. Well said. I brought that up for a reason, though, because there is a faction of, we'll say, LDS/BYU people and the community that don't feel like the resources should be going to athletics, that aren't comfortable with Kevin Young being one of the top paid coaches in the Big 12 or Kalani being one of the top paid coaches in the Big 12, that don't like the direction that it's gone because it is counter. Lavelle Edwards famously, because he did some radio over at my old station with Ron McBride. It was a really fun show. And he never negotiated a contract, never even asked, so
a year-to-year deal, if I remember correctly.
Correct. And the Detroit Lions tried to hire him, and he stayed at BYU. I mean, he passed up the chance to make a ton of money because he just loved BYU, and maybe those days are over. But when it comes to some of this backroom dealing or whatever you want to call it, that's probably an indelicate way to put it. I hear from people that are in this LDS/BYU community that aren't comfortable with the resources that are thought to be going to the athletic department because they don't think it's conducive to the overall message. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think you said something there that's important, which is you kind of alluded to the fans being uncomfortable with the perception that money, certain money is going to the athletic department, and either that could go somewhere else or just to throw money at a department that typically didn't have those resources before. And to me, the antidote to that would be transparency. One of the things that kind of surprised me a little bit after I personally left Mormonism and I joined an Episcopal church, and I'm on the kind of vestry of that church, which is it would be the equivalent for those listening here of like the ward council within a mainline Protestant denomination. And we have to publish our books to the entire congregation every single month. You can look up, and you're not going to find out how much any particular parishioner donated, but you can see here's what we got in the endowment, and here's where it's invested, and here's what we spent to replace the HVAC, and here's what we're saving up for this party or for this charitable event, and it's all there, and anybody could go in at any time and look at it. Is it secret? Like, not really. I mean, and we have a bunch of accountants in the church, and they can look through those things. And that's the way that many other mainline Protestant churches work. It's very much not the way that the LDS Church works, or the Catholic Church, or other religious organizations. And I think I am biased as a reporter who specializes in writing about financial transparency to say I think that would be helpful. And even if BYU decided, somebody leaked me their MFRS report, which I would publish, or publish some of their specific financial disclosures without knowing the rest of the university budget or knowing how some of the money came in through CES or out of CES, you wouldn't get the full picture. I also understand why they don't do it. And I'm not saying that they don't do it because they're secretly piping the widow's mite from Guatemala into the basketball team's NIL budget. I don't think that's the case. The schools told me that, and I believe them. But I also understand that when you get to be so large and accounting is really complicated. I feel like I've gotten half of a CPA license just from like talking to accountants and walking me through a lot of these reports, that they would say, if we are this radically transparent, then people who dislike our institution or dislike what we're doing for things that have nothing to do with dollars and cents will use this and attack us. No one's going to be brought to Christ because we opened the books, but maybe people will yell at us more. I don't necessarily agree with that. I understand why they would think that way. And what I would say to any BYU fan who shares those concerns, and I have those in my life too, people who are much more conservative than I am. So like that's something I think you should write to the school about. And something that I hope the school continues to explain because I know that the folks you're talking about are a meaningful constituency in this community.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sports talk radio show, so sometimes you put blinders on, you feel like everybody loves sports, but that's not the case. In fact, in colleges, the chasm between academia and athletics is nothing new. I mean, there's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of, wait a second, we're paying our coach what? I'm over here trying to save lives and mold young people, and we're giving our athletic department how much money? Like, it's not a new thing that, folks on the academic side are jealous of people on the athletic side,
No, I know that. I know that better probably than most of the guests that you'll bring on, because I have had my data and have been a part of conversations at other colleges mediating that exact conflict from people in the English department who see that, okay, we got our budget cut. Clearly the bad guy is the football team. Or, hey, I work at, I don't know, say Weber State, and I'm not really a college sports fan, so I assume that every university's athletic department budget is like Texas, even though you and I and everyone listening to the show knows that ain't how Weber runs, right? And for good or for ill. So that is always a tension. And some ways you can manage that by opening the books and saying, come and see for yourself, doubting Thomases. And sometimes it's through other conversations. My suspicion, and I could be wrong, because listen, I'm a guy playing amateur psychologist out here in Chicago instead of somebody who's living through it in your neck of the woods. So feel free to discount this. I suspect many of the people who are publicly frustrated about, oh my gosh, BYU's throwing money at athletics, and now Kalani's making the market rate instead of having to take a discount to come work in Zion. I think some of that is anxiety about things that really have nothing to do with football. About how they perceive the world is changing, how they perceive the school is changing on other things, how they perceive, where they are in the world with it. And those could be valid concerns too, but you can't assuage those by just throwing a spreadsheet at them,
Well said. Let me move over here, and I'm not asking you to dissect this specifically, but I want your thoughts on the dynamic. Okay, so we had. Sure. We had Chris Hill in studio yesterday, former athletic director at the University of Utah. And Chris.
Yeah, I know Chris.
Yeah, he hired Rick Majerus. He hired Urban Meyer. He hired Kyle Whittingham. And we were talking about the difficulties of okay, I'm Rick Majerus's boss, but he's still Rick Majerus. And what's kind of being framed out this way, Matt, is this is turning into Brian Santiago versus Kalani Sitake. I don't know if it is. It's being framed that way, including a text I received from somebody that works down there. In the dynamic of a athletic director and a all-powerful coach that has proof of concept, what usually happens there?
What usually happens is the coach is going to win 8 or 9 times out of 10. And this is one of the hardest things about being an athletic director. And it's a major reason why this job pays high 6 figures, low 7 figures now. Because your job is to look after the entire athletic department and after the university and after your stakeholders. And sometimes that means you have to go to the guy who's enormously popular and powerful and tell him no. And a lot of times that means that even if you're right, even if saying no was the correct answer, you end up losing your job. I think a non-Utah example of this dynamic playing out recently, I think would be to look at Kentucky, where Mitch Barnhart publicly clashed with Calipari, multiple times over should we be, remodeling our basketball practice facility, or should we be spending money on our resurgent baseball team or our women's sports or football, which has been mostly crappy for, X how many years. And then that was part of the reason Cal ended up leaving. And, Mitch isn't there anymore. Part of that is because he retired. I'm making air quotes here. But when you have a campus culture where there isn't anybody who is empowered enough to tell the coach no, you can run into really big problems. I would point to Michigan before they hired Kyle Whittingham to kind of be the babysitter and clean this up over the last couple of years as an outstanding example of an AD that couldn't tell any of his coaches no, and then you ended up with the basketball coach punching people, your football coaches being suspended almost as often as they were playing, and then by the way, you also still won a national title. I don't know if I could describe the current BYU dynamic in that way. If that was the case, I can't imagine there's many people in Provo, in Utah, anywhere that are going to side against Kalani, who's a universally beloved figure. And that's one of the really difficult political responsibilities of being an AD. And if you don't want that, you should be a sport administrator. You should go to take any of the other number of jobs where people like you and I will never call them on the phone.
Yeah, it's funny you just referenced Michigan, and Porter, my producer, reminded me that sometimes if a powerful head coach and an AD clash, the coach ends up coaching Michigan instead of Utah. It happened here last year, you know?
Yeah. That's exactly right. Tying everything together there. And we'll see. You guys would know this better than I would, but I'm sure there's plenty of people in Salt Lake that feel some kind of way about how that clash went between both sides. It's really hard to tell somebody who's basically gotten tenure, it's time to go. Yep. Right? We might, if Iowa, wins 7 games this year, Beth over at Iowa City is going to have that problem with Kirk Ferentz. And there's no easy way to do it.
Hey, last thing before you say you lose, the Protect College Sports Act, the vote has been pushed to September. Who knows if it's even going to pass or what have you. But there was an amendment that was made by a senator from Florida. And, of course, Florida is the home of Florida State and Miami of the ACC. And it's of interest to us out here in Salt Lake with the rumors that continue to circle about Utah. I mean, it's an obvious desire to be in the Big Ten because, of course, but the amendment was after this deal, after the Protect College Sports Act is ratified, if it is ever ratified, schools will have 180 days to leave the conference they're in order to avoid that 5-year window where you're going to have to wait if you want to join another conference. And so the antennas go up around here that if that's ratified, would Utah leave the Big 12 with the Big 10 being a realistic landing point? I know that I've asked you this before, but it's kind of new news. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. My first thought is that Senator Moody from Florida introduced this amendment along with other amendments from Senator Paul in Kentucky. There was one other, Tuberville. I think they introduced these as kind of the exact political term is one I don't think I'm allowed to say on the air of an FCC regulated channel. It starts with a rat, ends with a verb. Mm-hmm. But it's basically a parliamentary method to make sure that the bill doesn't advance or pass. It puts in a poison pill, right? If you add this kind of amendment, then it defeats the point of having any of the conference membership restrictions or guidelines that were put in there by other Republicans, as well as Senator Cantwell. It would defeat the point. Then Democrats wouldn't vote for it, and the whole thing would fall apart, which is exactly what ended up happening. The world can change so much these days in 6 weeks. Well, when everybody comes back from summer vacation and from campaigning and potentially gets ready to look at this thing again, I would be surprised from what I have heard so far, if the Protect College Sports Act gets a formal vote with virtually any of the conference realignment or membership restrictions still in the bill. They don't have the votes, and they don't have the votes in either house to pursue those two things specifically. If for somehow it does get through, I will say I'll give you the same answer here that I've given on the show a couple of times, and it remains true. I have never heard from any reputable person that I trust in the college sports business industry, on the television side, on the realignment consultant side, on the university president side, on the broadcast network side. I have not heard any of them point to Utah as this is a program the Big Ten would want to grab. At this point, I'm honestly skeptical the Big Ten would even take Florida State. The math doesn't work. It's kind of Notre Dame or nothing. Which limits Utah's options, right? And I get that they don't want to be in this league. I think the bigger issue for them is you guys got to figure out what you're going to do with that private capital deal and how you're going to make sure that Ocho doesn't end up eating your lunch. And if that works, then who knows? The world may be your oyster in 6 years. But you got some bigger problems to worry about right now in the Big Ten.
Matt, where can people go find your work at Extra Points, bud?
You can find all of my writing at extrapointsmb.com, and you can find me on social media at Matt Brown EP.
Thanks, man. Great stuff as always. Be well. We'll chat soon.
Oh, of course. All right. Take care, my friend. See ya.
He's not technically a professor, but now you understand why I call him a professor, because I just kind of pull my chair up and learn whenever Matt's on the show. Excellent stuff there. And what do you know? It's time to start thinking about football, and we're only a few weeks away from the best time of year. Now's the time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA Step 3 for the weeks ahead when the weather is still hot. But as the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, our fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find out more by visiting ifa.coop online. All right, we'll catch a break. Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah, will join us coming up next. Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, at 4. Dave Fox, Instagram influencer, live in studio at about 4:30. We'll get to the final hour of the program. Say goodnight at 6 on a Tuesday show right here on ESPN 700. All right, some really good stuff from Matt Brown today from Extra Points. You can follow Matt on social at Matt Brown EP. Give Porter a few minutes. I'll have that up on the website and also the podcast page in case you missed it. Just some really interesting comments from Kalani Sitake, of course, head coach of Brigham Young, former defensive coordinator for the University of Utah, and a man that most people very much love and respect, and a coach that's done a hell of a job. They've won the 5th most games in Power 4 football over the past 5 years. They've won 23 games over the past 2. They played for a Big 12 championship a year ago, and one of the favorites to win the Big 12 this year. And so Kalani sat down with our sister station, Ben Criddle, hosts a Cougar-centric sports show on our other station every afternoon, and made some very interesting comments that I think have to lead us to surmise that it's pretty simple, if we can be reductive a little bit, that Kalani was clearly given some promises that led him to stay at BYU, and according to what he told Ben yesterday, those promises just simply have not been delivered. Now, a couple of things here. One of the things he said was, I'm not even asking for what Texas Tech has. I'm just asking for what the others have. That may have been the most surprising statement that Kalani made during that interview to me, because we've all been led to believe, whether it's reporting or just people kind of getting information here or there, that Texas Tech and BYU are the biggest spenders in the conference. And most people believe it's really not even close. Now, Kansas got a big donation. They're going to upgrade their facility. As Matt just alluded to, the University of Utah's answer to this has been a private equity deal with Ocho Capital and the implementation of a new company called Crimson Brand Partners. Matt Webb, the CEO of Crimson Brand Partners, was my guest on the podcast about a month and a half ago. If you missed that, it's up on the podcast page. That's the Reality Check with Spence Checketts podcast. If you want to get to know Matt, he seems like a very bright, young sports executive who comes to Utah from the NBA, from Major League Baseball and the NFL. And as Matt referenced, that's kind of Utah's thing to figure out. Matt had some pretty strong language on the way out of that interview, making sure that deal is what it needs to be in order for Ocho Capital not to basically own Utah, is what Matt said. And we still don't have numbers, and we probably never will, at least not on the record publicly, because as we've discussed, Taylor Randall, Mark Harlan, whoever else was involved, very intentional by creating an outside entity, therefore not beholden to the same public request records that Utah is as an institution, the same public request records that revealed the tenuous final few weeks with Kyle Whittingham as the head coach of Utah, and clearly a very strained, to say the least, relationship between Whit and Mark Harlan that led Kyle to Ann Arbor, and Morgan Scalley is now bumped over a seat. But one of the things he also said is, we've been given the challenge of doing the most with the least. Let me repeat that. This is Kalani yesterday. We have been given the challenge of doing the most with the least. And I guess it's difficult to draw the parallel between the basketball program in Provo and the Utah football program in Provo. I mean, the one thing that we do know is A.J. Dubonsa came with a hefty price tag. And Kevin Young would not have left the NBA if he was not being paid what the top-tier coaches in a very powerful basketball conference, by the way, the Big 12, are being paid. We have the details of Alex Jensen's contract. And, Kevin is thought to be among the top-paid coaches in the Big 12 conference. I don't know if he makes what Bill Self makes at Kansas. I have no idea. But the basketball program is being heavily supported financially at BYU. We do know that. And what are the layers here that Kalani is discussing, I think is interesting to try to understand. He would not have stayed at BYU if he was not at least given close to what Penn State was offering him just individually. Now, the reports out there that Penn State were also, they were willing to pay, Jay Hill ends up at Michigan, but maybe it's Kelly Papinga that comes with Kalani to Penn State. Maybe it's Aaron Roderick. And Kalani was asking for guarantees for his assistants and also asking for guarantees with NIL initiative, just like Whit was asking from Michigan. And as Kalani told us during Big 12 Media Days, the ask from him to BYU was, I just want to know that you're going to commit to football. And the response that Kalani felt like he received was the emphatic answer was yes. And there's some sound surfacing online of Brian Santiago a number of months ago saying that football drives the ship. That's where our money needs to be. That's where our resources need to be allocated to. At most institutions, maybe there's some exceptions like Duke, even though Duke football is a lot better than it was 10 years ago. You know, maybe Kansas, even though still Big 12 football, even though Big 12 basketball is very good, Kansas basketball, you know, the Blue Bloods, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Dukes, maybe in those institutions, basketball is more of a revenue driver than football, but I doubt it. I mean, with the way football has kind of separated itself from basketball, your resources do need to go to your football program because you invest your resources in the product that's going to return those resources the most, and that's football, clearly. Media rights, live TV deals, jersey sponsorships, whatever the conference comes up with. We did see a rendering, by the way, of the Big 12/Monster logo that will be adorning basketball courts coming up this year, and it's not awesome. Doesn't look great, but hey, revenue, right? Mark Harlan, when he joined the show with Matt Webb, he talked about generating revenue, I don't know, 9 or 10 different times. There was the internal investigation that was leaked to the Salt Lake Tribune that indicated some revenue was being left on the table with comp tickets and such. There continues to be rumors permeating throughout the market of what they're going to do to Rice-Eccles Stadium. Mark talked about bunker suites, improved concessions, food, drink, etc., and therefore improving your consumer experience will come with a hefty price tag. That's how these things work. I mean, even without doing anything to the building, if you're a season ticket holder, you're aware that you received an email indicating that your tickets were going to be more expensive, and that's just how this works. It's how it works with Real Salt Lake Soccer. It's how it works with Jazz basketball. It's how it works with Mammoth hockey. And it's how it works in college athletics more so now than ever. I mean, I can't speak to what BYU is elected to do with their new ROC ticketing package. ROC is their student section. It's their must. But several complaints online that if you want access to football, then you have to buy tickets to their Olympic sporting events. And a lot of people not interested in going to those events. Everyone's interested in going to the football game. That's where everything happens. That's where everybody is. That's why the sport is as popular as it is. If you're not there, you're probably watching, and therefore live TV rights and media deals are worth more and more and more. And as we move towards the, I believe it's 2031 open window for the Big 12 media rights, it makes this stuff really interesting. What will those numbers look like? After the Big 10 and the SEC take the bulk of the market share, what will be left over for the Big 12 and the ACC? This is the dynamic that killed the Pac-12. I'm not sounding the alarm here. I'm not, saying that it's the same thing's going to happen either the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the ACC, because both those conferences probably are still poised to grab a very lucrative television deal, but it will be after the bidding war for the Big 10 and the SEC. That's the reality of where we're at. The question just comes down to this. What exactly was Kalani promised that he's not getting? Because he was careful about the phrasing. He talked about the strength and conditioning program. He talked about the weight room. He talked about some of the medical stuff. But the comment of, quote, we've been given the challenge of doing the most with the least from Kalani about BYU's resources absolutely flies in the face of everything we've been led to believe in, some of the things that we know. And again, most of the things we know are on the basketball side. It has to be said that Brian Santiago is a basketball guy. Matt Brown alluded to the national search that BYU reportedly did in order to land on the right athletic director. Well, they paid a bunch of money to a search firm that ended up with a guy that was in their backyard anyway. But most people, at least most people that I know, I mean, look, I have a BYU-centric family. I have a lot of friends that played sports at BYU or attended BYU. And I'll just speak for myself. I thought that job was going to be for Chad Lewis. I thought Chad Lewis for basically 20 years And the reports are Chad had a chance to lean into coaching and dabbled a little bit, but was never fully interested because I think Chad thought he was getting the job. After Tom Homo was done with his tenure, and Tom did a hell of a job down there, I think a lot of people thought it was going to go to Chad Lewis. Chad Lewis, of course, is a football guy. Brian Santiago played basketball at Fresno State. When the news came down that Brian was going to be the guy, it was met with mixed reactions, to say the least. He didn't do his undergrad at BYU. I don't think that really matters. But in this day and age, and maybe you can supplement some of the lack of funding to football if you feel like your basketball program can deliver, the number one pick in the draft, which it did with A.J. DeBonsa, not an NCAA tournament run or even a win. They had a lot of injuries. You got to say that out loud. But Kevin Young did go on the record to The Athletic to outline their financial model and basically said, we want 3 max guys, and then we're going to fill out the roster with some other, it was very much a professional model, 2 to 3 max players, your Jaren Jackson Jr.'s, your Lowry Markkanens, and then from there you fill out the roster and you're smart with your, your financial decision-making in order to fill out the roster with good players. BYU had Rob Wright III. We know that they paid Rob Wright III $3 million to go back on his word. Now, Rob had signed with Baylor. Scott Drew gave several interviews about this because he was so pissed. Rob signed with Baylor, and BYU offered him $3 million, and he went back on his word and ended up going to BYU for $3 million, okay? Richie Saunders was another player they paid 7 figures. So they paid A.J. DeBonsa in the neighborhood of $5 million. We know that they paid Rob Wright $3 million. And we know that Richie Saunders was a 7-figure player. I don't know how many schools in the Big 12 paid 3 players 7 figures to play basketball. Kansas probably did. Houston probably did. We could go over some of the other options. I can tell you that Utah did not. I can tell you that right now. I mean, I probably don't have to tell you that. You just watch the games. Due respect. So we know that the basketball program is receiving tremendous financial support. We know that, okay? We know that because of interviews on the record. I would say Arizona, Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, maybe Tech. Yeah, definitely Tech. And then BYU. If I had to guess, I would say the Big 12 basketball teams that had 2 to 3 players making $3 to $5 million. It was Arizona, it was Houston, it was Kansas, it was Iowa State, Texas Tech, and BYU. That has to be the list as I'm looking at it in front of me right now. So if we know the basketball program is receiving the financial support, the economic support that it needs, it's hard for me to believe that the football program would not be. And again, it does fly in the face of everything we've been told. Doesn't mean everything we've been told is correct. As Matt Brown talked about, you can't get information down there, simply by requesting it publicly. You have to wait for a Scott Drew interview where he said we had Rob Wright signed. He signed a contract to come back after he was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. And then BYU offered him $3 million a year, so he left us for them. We have on-the-record interviews with A.J. DeBonsa and Ace DeBonsa. And again, I know BYU likes to say, we're not the highest bidder. Okay, so you offered A.J. $4 to $5 million, and maybe North Carolina offered him $200,000 more. All right, so technically you're not, but you're still in the mix. I have to imagine after Bear Bachmeier became, the 4th freshman in college football history to win 12 games, that BYU had to pony up to keep him. L.J. Martin could have gone to the NFL draft. He opted out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl to have a shoulder surgery, but he could be in the NFL right now. Or any of these other players could be elsewhere for more money. Again, I'm not saying BYU paid more than anyone else to keep them, but they had to pay them to keep them. I'm sorry, you're not going to sell me on the whole, no, people just love swig. People just want copious amounts of crumble cookie. They love Provo. That's not a realistic thing for BYU people to expect everyone else to believe, that you're simply getting these top shelf players because they want a Provo BYU experience. A lot of them are not LDS. I'm not diminishing the experience. I think a lot of people would like that. But let's say you got a player in Bear Bachmeier. Let's say you offer him, and ESPN did some reporting on this today. Max Olson did some reporting on this today. We now have a general feel of what the market rate is for every position in college football. So you're leading me to believe that let's say you offered Bear Bachmeier $1 million. And after the season Bear had last year, if Josh Hoover can get $4 million, if Brendan Sorsby can get $5 million, then Bear could have as well. So you're telling me that I need to believe Bear Bachmeier may have left $3 to $4 million on the table because he wanted to hang out at University Avenue down in Provo? I will refuse to believe that. So what exactly is he alluding to? That, to me, is the big question. I want to let you know that you can help Utah kids start school with confidence. Over 200 kids at the Road Home need your help with back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. ESPN 700 invites you to be a child's advocate. Visit ESPN700sports.com or AppleTreeForKids.com for more information and to donate now. We'll catch a break. Stevenson Sylvester joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. Camp Scally is underway for Utah football. For the best coverage of Utes fall camp, keep it tuned in to the OC Show and the Drive with Spence Checketts every day, and visit ESPN700sports.com. Camp Scally is brought to you by CentXL, JBR, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, and your Utah Toyota dealers on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 at 92.1 FM. All right, let's welcome him in. Get a little camp insight. One of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Good friend of the program, Stevenson Sylvester, on a Tuesday. What's up, Sly? How are you?
What's up, Spence? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm mostly good because football is back and camp is here. You know what I mean? As somebody who went through all of these camps, what are you looking to accomplish during fall camp prior to the start of the season?
As a player?
Yes.
More continuity. I think the biggest thing in training camp, and hopefully, these guys are taking it as being professional and your playbook. But the biggest thing with football and why I love football so much, it is the biggest team sport out there, right? There's no other team sport that needs 11 guys on the same page, in sync, on a line, in order things to work and be successful, right? Basketball, you can go one-on-one and end up making it happen, and you see great individual efforts. But with football, you need CQ exchange, you need handoff, you need passes, you need people to block for somebody. Imagine getting the snap, you get a CQ exchange, and then nobody blocks for you, right? Just what was that? What's the movie with Keanu Reeves playing quarterback? The Replacements. Like you don't want to. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. So the biggest thing with training camp that you want as a player is to bring that chemistry together, right? Take it from the film room onto the playing field, understand timing, understand what somebody likes, where that receiver likes to have the ball on this hitch route, on this over route, on this gas route, on this poco post corner route, on this flag route. Where do people like to have things? So you bring that all together, and the goal is to be in mid-season form by the first game. If you're a good, successful team, professional team, and that's exactly what you want to be pretty much in mid-season form where you're cooking on all cylinders by that first game of the year. And then once you get into conference play, you're pretty much locked in. You're ready pretty much at the end of the year. Everything should be all going, no pre-snap penalties, none of that stuff is what exactly should be going on, man. So training camp is mostly all about chemistry and taking the meeting rooms and the boardroom to the field.
Now, from the perspective of Morgan Scally and Kevin McGivern and Colton Swan, the coaching staff, what are you hoping to see from your players after they come back from a bit of a break after spring?
That they took it seriously, right? For me, when I left, to give us a break, I remember because you going to Vegas, man, it's hot as hell in the summer, man. I'm freaking cooking. So I'm up early going for a run, man, and making sure that I'm in shape, and I studied my plays, and I was ready to go for training camp and whatever. I also, did summer school. So I stayed in Utah. So I was training around the facility because they had that open and option and stuff like that. But if I went home, it's basically when you leave the coaches from spring ball onto training camp, it's how much have you developed? What have you done on your own? And that's what I was getting at with the professionalism, right? You want these people to take it seriously, right? And that's what Coach Witt was so good at is really making you understand the temperament you need to have to be a professional, how serious you need to take this game if you want to be successful. I think that was his main goal with his messages and how he went about talking to his players is making sure you understand how serious this is, because you got other people's livelihoods. When you go to the pros, right? These guys have kids, they're married, they're 30-something years old. This is if we don't win, this affects their paycheck, right? And so that brings that professionalism. So if you rookie, we put you in this spot and you're not ready to go because you didn't take it seriously, you're letting everybody down. And so that's what was huge is making sure that you took it seriously in the offseason and you're getting better year to year, right? I tell everybody that I train is that the biggest jump you need to make, whether you're in high school or college, is that first and second year, right? That freshman and sophomore year, you have to make a big jump, right? Because that first year is like, you're just a fish out of water, right? You're just like, I don't know what's going on here. This is crazy. Everybody's this fast. Everybody's this strong. Is this? But then that second year, you know how fast everybody is. You know how strong everybody is. You know the playbook. You don't know the playbook, I guess, but you know exactly what to expect, right? There's no surprises when you're in your second year. And so you should be refining your talent. So the biggest jump needed to be from that first to second year, man. So seeing freshmen to sophomores, that's where I always pay attention to as a spectator is how's that guy developed since last season? Is he the same or is he better? And that's kind of where you want to be in the offseason progression.
So we had Coach Mack in studio last week for an hour, and I was a little taken back that he came right out of the gates and he was like, 10 wins is expected. Like, and look, I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm saying I think that would be a massive success for Morgan year one because there are just so many things that are unknown, new coaches, new players, replacing an offensive line. When you hear Mack say 10 wins, Sly, what are your thoughts there?
I kind of perk up when you say massive success. I think that's exactly what it is. One, that's a standard that Morgan has. It's not like Morgan came from another university where he's had to learn the dynamics of the community or had to, there's been all kinds of other adversity that he's had to face. This is his program. He's been within his program for 25 years since 2001. He's been here under the belt and understanding everything that's going on. He's been the coach and waiting for however long. There's a standard that one, he sets on himself, but two, there wasn't that much turnover that I don't think there was that much key turnover. There was turnover, right? You're alluding to the offensive line, some coaches, this and that. But, in the positions that matters most, right, your quarterback position, your skill positions, and some of those main key factors, those are still strong, man. You still got a lot of experienced leadership on this football team that was here during a 11-win season last year. And so I think that's a great way to start, right? Essentially, you just had a few seniors leave last year. Right? If you take it like if you want to go back in my day, you're going into a transition period where, we had a good amount of seniors that left the team and now we're replacing them with capable guys that got experience. And so I think Morgan is in a prime position. I think 10 wins is the bottom, right? For me, if he gets 8 wins, I'm like, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. This team is capable. I know everybody else hasn't been able to watch training camp and see these guys in action. I got high expectations for these guys, right? And I hope that they have that for themselves, but it's not going to be given to them. Iowa State's not going to just let you come into Ames, Iowa and just be like, okay, here, take this W. That ain't going to be happening. They got to go out there and take it. And I think Morgan understands that, and that's what he's daily impressioning upon these guys. He made a speech right at the beginning of practice. They went through a couple periods, and then he brought everybody together and was like, hey, and it's like, look, we're competing every single day. When you're out there, I don't care if they know that you're about to run a quarterback sneak. You block everybody up and you get as many yards as you can. Defense, I don't know. I don't care if they know that you're in man coverage or you're in cover 2. I don't care if they know what you're doing. You better go out there and win. And that's the mentality that Morgan has. And I think that's exactly what a mentality has to be if you're going to go out there and take it. It doesn't matter what obstacle is in my way. I'm going to go win. And that's what Morgan is trying to instill in these guys, man. So I got high hopes for this team this year. I think Coach Mack is hitting it right on the head. 10 wins is minimum for me. He better get at least 11 wins, which we got last year, or more.
I like the enthusiasm. I certainly will cede to your expertise. I'm more curious, Sly, than anything else, just because of all the things that we need to learn about. And as somebody who played in this system, as somebody who's up there watching the new coordinators and the new coach do his thing, I wanted to ask you about because what we have here, and Mac talked about this last week. Everyone, including Kyle, credits Fred Whittingham for this defense that was installed in like the 70s and the 80s and has continued with Kyle, has continued with Morgan Scalley, has continued with Kalani Sitake, and now continues with Colton Swan. What is the defense that everybody talks about? What are the concepts? What are you guys taught to do, and why do you think it's been so successful in so many different iterations over the years?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that, yes, it wasn't still, but it's evolved, right? From the different types of offenses that were, around in the 70s to what Andy Reid and those guys brought from the team down south, um, Leach and all the those passing gurus who came through the team down south and what they implemented into the game and how the defense has had to evolve from there. And then, even in the 90s, it's had to evolve even further. Spread offenses became more of a thing from the team under center. I love this defense, one, because for me, I love this. I take very much pride in this, in being from the University of Utah. When I got to Pittsburgh, Dick LeBeau's defense is not easy, right? And you're talking about legendary defenses. That's exactly what it is. There's so many variables to every situation. And, with the hash marks being shorter in the NFL, those variables, triple, between the plays. But I made my transition to the NFL really swiftly because of the knowledge that I gained from, this system in the University of Utah. All I had to do was change terminology. And so how I studied when I first got there was, okay, this means this, but it's the same technique, right? And so this is a very pro-style defense that has the ability to evolve, but it also has the ability to adapt to whatever offense puts out there. And I was taking it today when I was at practice. I'm just like, okay, you got this dynamic offense: Wayshawn Parker, Devin Dampier, Braden Pagan, Kyrie Scholes, Ricky Johnson. You got weapons, Henry Andrews. You got these weapons all over the place, right? How are you going to be able to do it from up tempo to low tempo? This defense carries. You can adapt. There's a check for everything that makes it simplified for the defense to be able to handle that. I can't really say that. I did a workout for the Detroit Lions one time, and the way they were doing their defense, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. You're going to get gashed. No wonder you guys get gashed all the time. And so, there's variables and there's levels to it. And this is a very pro-style defense that evolves throughout the years to no matter what offense personality is put out there, man. So this is a very, very adult defense. Is how I like to think about it.
I'm sure you like that Colton Swan was a linebacker coach before he became the defensive coordinator. Tell me what you've learned about him during his time at Utah.
He's got a linebacker mentality, right? It's you got to get the job done at the end of the day. There's no excuses. And that's what I really love about him. And I know that's what Morgan loves about him too, is there's no excuses. Yes, there's going to be adversity. Yes, we're not going to be perfect. Yes, this and that, but get the job done. Make the tackle. We want to get a TFL every time, but if he gets a 2-yard gain, make sure he gets down to the ground so, we can live again, and we can have the ability to send them more back, 4 yards in the TFL. He has that do or die mentality that I really, really like, and I think is going to be great for a defensive coordinator. Again, I don't know what he's like as far as a play caller, right? Because that's just as important as being able to teach and be there and motivate, being able to call the right play in the right situation. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm like, what are you seeing? Are you going to be like Morgan Scalley when you get the play in, 2 seconds before the snap? Are you going to be like a different coordinator that, gives your defense enough time to think about what's going on and all this? And that's all him. And how are you adjusting to how teams attack you? Right. And for me, you got to put your ego aside, too, because it's like this team came into this stadium and it attacked me this way because of what they saw on film. What did I put on tape? Did I put some bad stuff on tape that people are trying to attack me with? Right. But you got to put that aside and be like, OK, this is how we adjust. Right. And making sure your guys are ready, man. So I think Colton Swan is great because he is there's no excuses with him. I assume if the defense doesn't play great this year, he's going to take all the onus because that's just who he is. And that's linebacker mentality. You own that defensive side of the ball. You take up for the defensive line, not getting the communication and not getting position the way they need. The defense, the DBs not getting the communication that they need and getting lined up. You take on that onus. You don't blame other people. And I think that's just Coach Swan's mentality and why I believe he'll be successful.
Moving over to the offensive side of the ball, when I asked Mac last week what he's expecting, and maybe the Nebraska game, the bowl game, was a little bit of a peak. And look, I think we talk a lot about what Morgan believes as it pertains to just his approach to football and how it compares to Kyle. And it seems like most people believe there are more similarities than differences. But Mac feels like we're going to see more, as Kyle would say, the throw game. Like Devin's going to throw it more than he did a year ago. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is between Devin and Bird, last year was about 18 carries per game. And, you know, Devin, during Big 12 Media Days, when he joined the show, was very honest about his health a year ago in a way that we just didn't get information about because that's the way Kyle operates with his injury reports. And look, you were on the sidelines for all these games. It was probably pretty obvious when he wasn't right, because when he was right, he was so dynamic. But new coordinator in Kevin McGivern, new head coach who most people believe might believe in a little bit more of a passing type conceptual offensive attack than the previous guy did. Tell me what you're expecting.
I'll tell you exactly what Morgan told me today. I don't know. He said, I don't know. I asked him that question directly. I'm just like, you leaning more towards one or the other? He's like, I don't know yet. It's going to be a game-by-game take basis. They have the horses to do whatever they want. Devin throws a beautiful ball. He's incredibly accurate. You know, when he talks about being media days, when he talks about himself, having that 70% completion rate, it's possible. I think it's extremely possible. With how dynamic this offense is from going – you know, up tempo, low tempo, huddling, getting guys open, and you have playmakers all to where I'm not zeroing in on one guy. If I'm a defense, I can't just zero in on Larry Simmons. I can't just zero in on Brendan Pagan or Wayshawn Parker. They got love everywhere. Hunter Andrews is going to come in and take some wildcat, and you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't practice this because I was so worried about Bird Finklin. And I was so worried about Devin Dampier getting out of the pocket, right? Like this offense has so many horses that right now it's not clear on how they're going to be their actual identity. Their identity could be whatever the heck they want it to be. And that's exciting, right? It could be, I'm going to run for 300 yards this game. Next game, I'm going to throw for 500. Right, that is the type of quality this offense brings, man. And seeing it firsthand in practice, man, and their focus, and I have to shout out Devin Dampier's leadership and him getting guys along. I know we've heard McGivern in press conferences and that, but seeing it in person and seeing Devin really own that position of being that guy on this team is refreshing, man. He's leading the pack with everybody from Bird, who's backing him up and making sure that everybody sees exactly what he's seeing and everybody's on the same page. And he's a team leader, right? It's not just the offense, it's the defense, it's the special teams. He's speaking up on all fronts. He has that comfortability this year. And so that's extremely huge, man. But this offense is extremely dynamic, and I'm so excited to see it going. I think our schedule, it benefits us, or it not benefits us. It's perfectly set. You can't ask for a better schedule. You have really talented opponents. You have breaks. You have this and that, where you have opponents who aren't as talented, but no game is won before it's played. Everything right now, the stars align to they will better have a 10+ win season by the end of the day, man. So expecting a lot of great things from this Utah football team.
As a guy that's up there, as a guy that played for Witt and was there when Morgan was a coach and knows both of them in a way that most of us don't, you're good to give us some guidance and answer the question about how it feels up there compared to how it felt under Kyle. And I'm one that continues to say, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it does feel a little bit different. What feels different about it to you?
Nothing. I can honestly say nothing. There's a little bit different ways of how they're going about things. I think of what they're prioritizing. But training camp is training camp. Football is football. I don't care where I go. If I go to Stanford or I go to San Jose, if anybody thinks that it's a different vibe, I question if you play football. And I think the only difference is what they're prioritizing, right? With all of the horses that we're talking about, with all of the ammo and the star power that we have at the University of Utah, I think more than ever, more than when Coach Witt is where the prioritization of health is definitely apparent, right? The prioritization of exertion of energy and what we're putting to in the focus and the drills and the attention to details is what I believe is what is apparent, right? Coach Witt has a mentality of, I want to make sure that I'm going out here on this football field with tough guys, mentally tough, physically tough, ready to endure whatever comes out of them, right? So he's constantly testing you, whether you're a veteran or a newbie. There's different ways to test people. And with Morgan, I think Morgan's idea is like, look, I know I got guys. Let's make sure that they're healthy, but they're focused. They understand that they take the drill seriously. Everybody's extremely on par, and we are making it more game-like. Every single day is more game-like. Like if you went back in the day and you went to training camp, you went to practices, it's just like, oh, there's just so much. It's just taxing, right? But if you go to an actual game, right, I get a series here, I'm exerting this much energy here, and then I'm backing it off. And then I'm exerting this much energy here on special teams, and then this, and this. I think there's more of a focus to making every single practice more game-like experience, as far as the way that they're exerting energy and keeping them fresh and healthy and keeping them focused, man. So and again, I've seen successful at both ways, right? I was telling somebody this morning, I was just like, I've seen it successful with this type of mentality. I'm seeing it successful the other way mentality, and the other side of the coin of that, I've seen it unsuccessful in both ways. And so, it's just waiting to see. There's only so much guessing that we can do. One thing you can't guess is talent. I mean, we got talent, man. So waiting to see that on the football field this fall.
All right, last thing we'll set you loose. It's been 3 games. BYU has won 3 straight. And so we're sitting here with a streak now that Ute fans are hoping will end on November 7th in Salt Lake. Is this the year Utah gets back on the right side of the game?
I think that's the number one thing I've heard so many alumni and anybody talk about it. I cannot wait to stop that. It irks. Well, I know it irks me, but I love hearing it from other people that it irks other people too. So yes, I do believe this is a year that Utah can get on the other side of it. But here's the thing: BYU is darn good. They're a darn good football team. That they are built the way that they are put together from their defensive standpoint and the personnel, the way that they're put together personnel wise, they are dang good. I think it's going to be a freaking battle of the ages again, another thriller, right? Even if a team gets up by 14, that point spread is going to dwindle, right? It's going to be one of these, like both of these offenses are going to be high scoring offenses, right? And so everybody's going to be like, oh, it's going to be a 40-point game. And then next, it's a 10-13 game, right? Because they're just a stalemate. They're so equally matched, right? You're going to find the hidden yardage, right? That's what I believe, Morgan. We get down to week 8 or 9, I believe it is, by November 7th. And you're going to be talking about the hidden yardage, right? Those hidden things where we're going to need Dylan Curtis to step up and hit a 45-yard field goal that's going to put us in position to give us a comfortable lead. We're going to need these different things, man. We're going to need this Salt Lake City crowd. It's a top 10 stadium, in the nation, to be able to have the Utes back and be screaming loud in that stadium and make sure BYU can't hear nothing. It's going to take everybody in order to win that football game, but I do think that we do get on the right side of this rivalry this year.
Sly, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time today. Have a good week. We'll chat soon.
You the man. Thanks, Spence.
All right, Stevenson Sylvester, very bullish on Utah football. I'll tell you what, for Sly to say 10 wins is the floor, look, Sly's up there a lot more than any of us, and he has access as a former player. Most of us do. I'll just ask you straight up: if I guaranteed you 10 wins for Utah football this year, would you take it?
You take it every time.
Yeah,
because what that does is it probably puts you in a Big 12 championship game, and then in previous years, Spence, if you're trying to play beyond that, you almost have to run the table in the Pac-12 or get to a one-win championship or a one-win championship appearance. As we know with BYU, they had 2 losses to the same team, and it kept them out. But if you have 2 losses, it, for the most part, gets you in a Big 12 championship game. And I think with an expanded college football playoff, you are maybe more inclined to accept a loss or 2, whereas – I mean, back in Sly's day, you could have gone 13-0, and guess what? They're leaving you out. They don't care. And that's another part of Sly's expectations. He's actually gone out and gone undefeated on a college football team. Here's the deal. Utah, as of now, is favored in probably 10 games. Now, I know the over-under for Vegas has them lower than that, but when you go one by one through the schedule, they're likely favored in 10 of those matchups. So if you can simplify it down to that, if you're Morgan Scalley and co., and you can just go out and win the games you're supposed to, that can be an expectation. I don't necessarily think it's the floor. We've seen years where a really good team has a bunch of injuries and they win 6-7 games. So that's always a possibility. Winning 10-plus games in college football requires a few things. It requires you to be really damn good. It requires a little bit of fortune as far as injuries and timing, all the like, and it requires you to stay healthy. All those things have to happen for Utah to win 10-plus games. Now, it's a possibility.
I just want to see some dudes playing ball, man.
I know you do.
You know me. In fact, let's just get the update before we catch a break. Bro, seriously, how great is it?
It's the best.
How great is ball?
Too great?
You know what? That's the answer.
We're making ball great again?
Never mind. All right, we're going to catch a break. Bill Riley coming up on the other side. We recorded this podcast earlier. This is the new project I have with KUTV. It's called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. It's a reminder that this podcast is released every Wednesday, and our new TV window is Wednesday nights. So go home and set your DVR on KMYU or KJazz. You're going to see a show, I think it's 9 or 9:30. It's called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. If you want to watch a podcast live, because who doesn't want to do that, go check that out. And we're going to bring that to you coming up next. But I want to let you know that the crack of the bat, the pop of the ball, baseball season is heading into the home stretch, and it's time for your team to get in the game. Treat your lawn this month with IFA Spring and Summer Lawn Food. It's blended locally and formulated especially for Utah soil. It grows a healthy, lush, and thick, dark green lawn. Just another one of our 4 easy steps. Find out more online at ifa.coop. Riles is going to join us coming up next on ESPN 700. And we are back, episode 19 of Reality Check with Spence Checketts right here, streaming live on ESPN 700, released in podcast form on Wednesday, and now televised Wednesday nights. So it was Friday nights, but now it's Wednesday nights on KJazz TV and KMYU. And a very special guest today, as fall camp is going on up on the hill for the University of Utah, the voice, simply known as the voice of the Utes, my buddy Bill Riley in studio. What's up, man? How are you?
Spence, this is quite a setup you've got here.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's been fun. And, we've had Alex Jensen, Morgan Scally, Mark Harlan. We try to do a lot of Utah stuff. And obviously, I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time. And we're going to get to fall camp storylines because everybody wants to talk college football. But in this space, I kind of like to help the listeners and the viewers get to know the people that make up our sports ecosystem a little bit. You're an adopted son of Utah. You've been here long enough where you're basically a local, but you're not from here. My first question is, I've always been jealous of people like you because you knew you wanted to do this at a very young age. What was your light bulb moment where it's like, yeah, I'd like to be a sports broadcaster? What's the origin story there?
Well, it was funny you bring this up because I was just talking about this. I was back in Kansas City where I grew up, visiting my folks last week, and we were kind of walking down memory lane and looking some of my early stuff. And when I was in college and just out of college and things like that. I mean, I was a decent athlete as a child, but I was not great at anything. But I loved sports. Mm-hmm. And it was very apparent I was never going to make a living doing sports.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be around it. And I credit my dad. My dad had no tie whatsoever to sports. He worked in roofing, but he was such a sports fan. Not one of those diehard fanatic people, but he always loved going to events. And if we couldn't be at an event, we always had the radio on or the TV turned down and the local announcers up. And so I was kind of around it my childhood. And I can remember all the announcers growing up I listened to. And that kind of had a profound effect on me. And I figured, okay, I want to do something around sports. Maybe I'll be a sports writer. Maybe I'll work in PR. And when I got to the University of Kansas, I kind of experimented in all of that stuff because they've got a really good journalism school. And I tried, the PR thing. I tried the writing thing. But the thing that really hooked me was the radio and TV portion of it. And I always thought it would be cool if you couldn't be at the game to be the person that brought the game to the people that couldn't be there. To be the thing. It's like when I was a kid, we went to a lot of games, but I wasn't there every night. So I'd listen on the radio or watch on TV. And I always thought that was really cool. Plus, when you're in this business, you don't make any money when you first break into this business. I figured if I wasn't, I always liked the immediacy and the liveness of radio and television, where newspaper and some other mediums was delayed. So if I could be live and in the moment and still bring people those events, that's kind of what I wanted to do. So, yeah, I did know early on, and I chased it. And I had buddies that, just did other things, but they didn't know what they wanted to do for 3 or 4 years of college. But like from my freshman year all the way through, I was into it. And then I moved around to little tiny towns in the Midwest and tried to hone my craft doing high school stuff and country music DJing and all of that.
Cowboy Bill?
Cowboy Bill.
I remember Cowboy Bill.
On KRES radio in Moberly, Missouri.
Love it.
But that was where I got my reps. And, sometimes you did a whole bunch of other things to do a 3-minute sportscast at the end of the day. But you loved it. And I had professors in college that said, well, you'll find out right away because you're not going to make any money. You're either going to know in a year if you love doing it or not love doing it. And I love doing it.
Well, and you really did it the old school way.
Yeah.
These days with social media and the ability to start your own YouTube channel or Instagram page, you don't have to move to Topeka or whatever in Moonlight and Cheyenne. You can release a bunch of content. And if the right person sees what you're doing and they like you, they'll give you an opportunity. But you really, like the old school classic radio, TV, grind it out. You really made your way the old school way.
I sent out hundreds of cassette tapes and videotapes to radio and television stations all over the Midwest, hoping somebody would see it and like it. In a little tiny radio station in Hastings, Nebraska, Tom Osborne's hometown.
Nice.
Listened to my tape and said, yeah, we like it. And so they ended up hiring me sight unseen. They didn't bring me up for an interview. They were a little tiny town of 25,000 people. And I did a little bit of everything, but they had 3 high schools there and they had a small college there. And I worked with another guy. They hired 2 of us fresh out of college to fill one guy's job that they fired, which I got an early lesson in our business. Because we were much cheaper than the guy that had been there 25 years.
Yeah.
We didn't know each other. We roomed together. We're friends to this day. We only lived together 6 months, but that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And yeah, you rolled up your sleeves. I had professors that said, hey, You're going to have to roll up your sleeve, and you're going to have to go to Hastings, Nebraska, Moberly, Missouri, Dodge City, Kansas. Around here, I teach a class up at the University of Utah, and I tell these kids, hey, if you want to be in it, you want to get those reps every day, you got to go to Pocatello or Grand Junction or places like that to cut your teeth, to get those reps, and then you can move up.
I remember the first day nearly free. And then and then it was just minimum wage. I would fill out a expense report. I'd make like $25 for a 4-hour Saturday show. What was your first job where you were actually able to like pay rent and buy groceries?
Well, I lived in a condemned building in Hastings. I was making $11,000 a year. It was like
baller.
Baller. Second job, I was making $15,000 a year. I think the first time where I felt like I was somewhat comfortable was when I moved to Wichita, Kansas. It was my third job, about 3.5 years out of school. I think I was making like $22,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I had doubled my pay in 3 years, and I was living kind of in a small city, but still a real place, in a real apartment, and knew some people in town. So I kind of felt like, hey, maybe I made it a little bit here.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a Jacksonville stop.
Yes.
What's the Utah origin story? What brought you here?
So we were working in Jacksonville. There was a ton of we ran a sports radio station. I got to start it from scratch. There was already one in town. It was terrible. We started from scratch, killed it. And we carried the Jacksonville Jaguars. We carried a little Jacksonville University. We were Jim Rome back in the day, his fifth affiliate.
Okay.
We had morning, midday, afternoon. We were just absolutely killing it. Ratings, revenue, the whole thing. And Jacksonville was a great sports town. We carried ESPN radio early on, all of it. But we got bought and sold like 4 times in 5 years. And the last time was a company called Cox Communications.
Mm-hmm.
And Cox Communications out of Atlanta, they came in, they bought the whole radio group, and we were one of the groups. And they met with the new GM, met with all the different stations individually. They bring us in. There's 15 of us on the staff. It was a big staff. And I remember the guy's name, Dick Williams. And he said, hey, guys, love what you're doing. You guys are absolutely killing it. But we don't run sports radio stations. We're kind of looking, but hey, keep up the good work. But we don't run sports radio stations. He said it twice.
Okay.
We're kind of looking at each other going, So what they did was, and you know this because you've been in it long enough, ratings are great. What matters is revenue.
Of course.
Our ratings were killer. What they did was every 3 or 4 months for a year, we had 6 full-time salespeople. They'd pull a salesperson off and reassign them to another radio station.
Okay.
So a year into our existence under this new ownership, our ratings were phenomenal. We had no revenue because there was nobody selling the station.
Right.
And then 15 of us lost our job. But we also had a news talk station, and the guy that was a consultant for the news talk station was a guy named Dennis Kelly.
Okay.
Really nice guy. And when I got out of work, Dennis Kelly was also consulting a station in Salt Lake City named KSL.
Sure.
And they were going through a change. Greg Wrubell, who you and I both know, the voice of the Cougars, was leaving the station kind of on a full-time basis to go become the full-time voice of the BYU Cougars.
Yeah.
So they needed somebody to do his sports talk show, drive time sports, pregame, postgame, all of that stuff. I needed a job. They flew me out, hired me. I'd never been to Salt Lake City ever in my life. Flew me out on my birthday in 2001. I accepted the job, and I've been here ever since. 25 years.
Love it. And, it's interesting to consider, because now you're the voice of the Utes, but you started here taking over for Wrubell on KSL, which is kind of the BYU station. And then throughout the course of how long have you been here now?
25.
25 years. You have, made your way across different platforms, and you've landed now as the director of broadcasting for the school. But before we get to some football storylines, I did want to take a minute because it's still amazing to me to this day. I still occasionally will get I miss Bill and Spence message, DM, email, or whatever. And you and I did a show together for about 3 or 4 years, something along those lines. It really was my first full-time afternoon drive. I'd done some midday stuff, pre-F and post-Saturday stuff. And I just wanted to kind of chop it up a little bit about that because I still have so many fond memories. I have people that legitimately will tell me like that was their favorite sports talk radio show in our state.
I say to this day, and I've done my own show. I've worked with other people. You've done your own show. You've worked with other people. I have been in this market 25 years and listened to everything. I know that I carry some bias into it, but I could separate it. I think the show that you and I did together was the best 3-year run anybody ever had to sports talk radio in this market.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And other people tell me the exact same thing
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. We started at Trolley Corners.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved out to the west side.
West side.
Yeah. And we were, basically kind of nomads moving around because we didn't have a permanent home yet. But I think our personalities and our backgrounds in sports and our love of different in a variety of sports and pop culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was a perfect blend at a great time. And I still have people say, man, I love your show. I love Spence's show. But boy, when you guys were together, or when I come in and fill in occasionally and we do the crosstalk thing before your show on the radio, people are like, that's my favorite 15 minutes of radio every week. I love that.
It was fun. And I need to publicly say thank you to you for kind of helping me learn that business and what it was like full time. It's different when you're doing weekend shows and pre-, and post-game and occasional fill-in here or there. And then boom, when it's your day-to-day. And I say this all the time, like there are people that say I could do that job. And I know that because I used to say that. Yep. To which I say, you probably could for about 30 minutes. Do it for 3 to 4 hours every single day. Try to seem interesting and energetic and engaged for 4 hours every single day. It's a whole different deal. So you really helped me understand the space.
Doing it every day is the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I did it for 4 hours for a long time. Then I moved to middays. You had afternoon drive. We both did it solo. That's not easy to do. People that are in our business that have done it for a long time couldn't do solos. There's a lot of people that could not. They were great radio people, but if you ask them to do a consistently solo show, they probably couldn't do it. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of people always say, how much time did you prep for your show? I said, you're always prepping for your show. You're always thinking. You're always, maybe this would be a good guest. Maybe this would be a good topic. To actually sit down, I probably spend an hour or two in the morning getting ready, but you're always thinking about it and you're always preparing for it. And it's fun. And I tell people, you probably could fill in for a day or two. But, in the old days before we had the Mammoth and everything going on, I said, try doing, a week's worth of shows in late June or early July in Salt Lake City when basketball's completely over, football's still a month away, and you're having to come up with topics. I mean, that's when you've got to, and by the way, anybody can crack a mic and talk. But you better be interesting,
right?
Because there's lots of other options. There's podcasts. There's other sports radio shows. There's Sirius satellite radio. You not only have to do 3 hours, but you have to be somewhat interesting to keep people from turning away.
Yeah, somebody once said to me, people can go anywhere to get the information you're giving them. You have to make them want it to get it from you, right? You have to make sure that you're the one that they want to get that information from, because they can really go anywhere to get the info. But look, man, it was a lot of fun during that time. And obviously I went to another station and you continue to build up ESPN 700, but you left us a few years ago. Do you feel like this is kind of like the gig that you've been waiting to land and this is where you want to be for as long as you can?
Yeah, I want to be there as long as I can. You know this, the further you get, I mean, you're doing all this stuff now, but the later you get in life, even if you're really good at what you do, opportunities don't present themselves nearly as often. And so when the U approached me with the opportunity to be the director of broadcasting and work with a team to help create the ESPN Plus platform up there, I could have continued to do that radio show and had fun doing it. But I was like, do I still get to do the play-by-play, which I love more than anything that I do? Yes. And it's a new challenge, but it's within what I've done throughout my career. So I jumped at the opportunity and it's been great. And now instead of splitting my time between 2 or 3 places during the day, everything that I do is kind of central. And I'm heading into my 3rd year full time up there, 2 in the back rearview mirror. And it's been great. I've enjoyed it.
Good. Yeah. We miss you at the station, but we love having you be able to fill in and obviously stop by as guests from time to time. And of course, as you know, somebody who ran ESPN 700, Utah football is kind of our lifeblood. Yeah. And that won't change.
Well, and I had somebody ask me this morning as we taped this, who I hadn't seen in a while, if I miss it. And I said, every now and again I do. But I said, I'm lucky enough to be able to get to go in and fill in from time to time for Sean when he's out. And that kind of lets me scratch that itch just a little bit. And I'm still on the radio on game days and things like that. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And you get to build something really cool because I think, the present and the future of Utah athletics is very exciting. And with our remaining 9 or 10 minutes or so, let's talk about some fall camp storylines, as it is week 2 of Camp Scally, not Camp Kyle anymore.
It's weird.
And it is. But I want to start with what you perceive to be the differences now. Ethan Day, a defensive lineman who transferred in, was asked about the energy of camp last week. He said, it kind of feels like a party. I'm like, well, Kyle's not in charge anymore then, because that's a different deal altogether. So as someone who covered 21 years of Witt as the head coach, what are the differences in year 1 under Morgan?
It's a different, I think I've told you this on your radio show. It's just a different kind of an energy. Morgan's a different guy than Kyle. They approach football and see football the same way, tough, physical, hard-nosed, things like that. But Morgan's personality is just different than Kyle's personality. He's a much more outgoing, much more vocal guy on a regular basis. His energy is much more upbeat. Now, again, some of that might have to do with his age a little bit too. Kyle's 66, Morgan's in his mid to late 40s. So there's going to be a little bit of a difference there too. But Ethan Day's right. There is a different kind of an energy out there. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of running. That was in the spring. That was through summer conditioning. And it's the same thing at fall camp too. The vibe around the program, and you've known Morgan for a long time, the vibe around the program really mirrors his personality.
Yeah.
And it mirrors who he is. And part of that too is he's hired a lot of coaches on that staff that I think fall in his, they're not, and this is not to say yes men, but they fall in line with what his personality and the way he carries himself is, if that makes sense.
It does. Morgan had us media schlubs up to the football building a couple of months ago. You big-timed us because you work there now, so you didn't have lunch with us.
But I came in the football session with you, sesh.
You did, the sesh, indeed. Please don't call it that. But I sat next to Jordan Gross at lunch. And the one thing, this was all off the record, so Paul, please don't call me, because I think you'll appreciate me sharing this. Jordan said, you want to work hard for Morgan, not because you feel like you have to. You genuinely just want to, right? I mean, you want to work hard for him. You don't feel like you have to, right? So I find that kind of interesting where he's not necessarily leading with an iron fist. No. He wants to empower people to do good work. But look, if there's one thing that we have proof of over the past 5-6 years or so of NIL and transfer portal is teams that have a veteran quarterback seem to have a much better chance than breaking somebody new in. And look, Devin's first year was a year ago. There were some questions about whether or not he could do at the Big 12 level what he did at New Mexico. He answered all of those. But his announcement that he was coming back came on the heels of bad news after bad news after bad news. Witt is gone. And then who's going with him? Oh, almost everybody. And then John Henry Daly and Smith Snowden and recruits. Utah fans badly needed some good news, and Devin's announcement that he was coming back felt kind of like that shot in the arm. Is it even reasonable to expect him to be better this year based off of how awesome he was a year ago?
I think so. I think he can be better maybe in different ways. I'm going to be really curious to see, because of the depth and talent they've got in the passing room, in the pass game, in the wide receiver room, how Kevin McGivern uses that, because they had the best offensive line in college football and a bunch of really good backs and a mobile running quarterback, actually 2 of them. I'm sure we'll talk about Bird in a minute. So they just ran the ball down people's throat. They just bullied people. They had almost 1,000 more yards than the second best team in the Big 12. They were second in the country. Maybe Army, who runs it every play.
That's all they do, yeah.
Had more yardage. So I think it is very reasonable for Devin to become a better, maybe he doesn't run for as many yards this year. In fact, if I was hedging a bet, I would probably go in that same realm or maybe a little bit less, just because of the running backs. But I think they've got a chance to really throw the ball if they want to a lot this year, just because of the weaponry that's there. So he cut down on he had 12 interceptions at New Mexico. I think he had 5 last year. Yeah. The real key is, obviously, for Devin is, as it is with every quarterback, staying healthy.
Yeah, and you bring up the workload. He and Bird last year averaged about 17, 18 carries per game together. I wouldn't mind seeing that 12 or 13, because he was very candid with us during Big 12 media days about just how injured he was a year ago. And you could see it, because when he was dynamic, he was almost unstoppable. And then I think the Tech game and the BYU game specifically, no coincidence that those were the 2 L's. He just didn't look healthy. So you got to keep him healthy. How much do you think we're going to see Devin and Bird on the field together in packages?
That's a good question because Kevin's talked about the possibility of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether he executes that or not remains to be seen. They've talked about using Bird as a weapon. I mean, you saw the way Bird Ficklin ran last year.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, it felt like every time he turned the corner or broke into the open field, it was a touchdown.
Yeah.
Guy ran for over 600 yards and 10 touchdowns, and he was a backup quarterback.
Right.
He saw limited time on the field. So I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know if that's, you put it out there because it gives teams something to think about, or you see it on a limited basis, or you see it more than often than not. But if they are, that's going to be something tough to defend because you've got two elite runners who can both throw the ball very well.
So you read a lot of preview magazines, and on your podcast, you have a lot of the guys that are previewing college football, the Brett Ciancias of the world. Joel Klatt released his top 25 this week, and Ute fans are used to Joel Klatt loving Utah football, but a couple of things caught me off guard. First of all, no Utah in the top 25. Oklahoma State is his number 25 team. I mean, they have 85 new players. I know they got the Mestamaker kid who led the country in passing a year ago. Arizona, Houston, BYU, Tech. Those are his 5 top 25 teams. But the line that caught me is he said, okay, Ute fans, I know you're going to be listening to this because I used to say death taxes in Utah football. What I meant was death taxes in Kyle Whittingham because he has Michigan at 10, which is a little bit higher than most people have Michigan. So whether it's Ciancia or, any of the guys that cover college football, previewing college football, what's your understanding of just kind of generally speaking, what people are expecting from Morgan and Utah football this year?
It's very divided. I was listening to the Audible podcast with Stu Mandel, Feldman, and Ralph Russo today. All three of those guys picked the under on the 8.5 win total that Las Vegas had set for Utah football. They're all saying they're not going to fall off a cliff, but it made me wonder whether they had looked at the schedule or not. And I've said this before, the beauty of where Utah is now, it's not like the old Mountain West or WAC days. They play in a Power 4 league, and they get a chance to go out and prove it on the field. And that's the greatest thing of all. I think it's a little imbalanced, Spence. I think I'm okay with them not being picked to win a league or even questions because, again, they're replacing a line, an offensive line, some new faces defensively, and a new head coach. I get it, but there's a lot of talent in the program. If you dive deep, they didn't lose everybody. They made it sound like everybody went to Michigan with Kyle Whittingham. That's not the case. So I think there's some people that are really high on, I shouldn't say really high, but they're very positive on Morgan Scalley.
Mm-hmm.
I think Utah should fall. I think the coaches poll came out, had them 21. I said they should probably be anywhere from about 16 to 21. I think that's fair for them. And that's where they were in the coaches poll. I think with the media poll coming out, I think they'll be in that same range too. I think that Utah is going to be very good this year. And I know I'm close to it, and I see things that other people don't necessarily see on a regular basis. But I think they're underselling what Morgan Scalley has been preparing for the better part of 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And the organization that he's got in that head of his and what he's wanted to do. The man has had a plan. He's enacting that plan. And to your point, you've got an all-league caliber starting quarterback. You've got a great insurance plan behind him. You've got offensive weaponry like they've probably never had the amount of offensive weaponry that they have this year. So that's why I'm very bullish on Utah. And then you look at the schedule. Arkansas, solid SEC program most years, but they're rebuilding. They've got 75 new players. Idaho's middle of the pack, Big Sky. Utah State picks 6th in the new Pac-12. Iowa State reloading. Colorado. I mean, your first handful of games are a lot of teams that are undergoing major transition, not just with coaching, but with rosters as well.
Can you give me a guarantee?
I know you'd like a guarantee, but how about if I guarantee that I'll come back and do this again sometime if you want to?
Love it, man. Thanks for the time. Good to see you. Okay.
You too, Spence.
All right, we will get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program today, coming up in just a little bit. We'll say goodnight at 6. RSL with a big match tonight. Juarez FC, or FC Juarez. Is it FC Juarez?
Yeah, FC Juarez.
FC
Yeah.
Juarez. Even I know that.
Take your sunglasses off. I don't want to. I'm
No,
not interviewing you with sunglasses
I love
on.
These. I got to tell you, I
Dave,
just got these. They're prescription.
Dave, take them off, man. You didn't have them on when we were chatting
I
during
know,
the break.
but I can see so much better when I put them on.
Could you put?
I
Are
can see
you going to wear those all segment?
Well, what difference does it make?
That I have to look at you.
But they are cool.
Larry David once said famously, there are two types of people who wear sunglasses inside, blind people and a-holes, and you're not blind.
Oh, I'm close. When you're my age, you'll be going, oh, now I know what Dave meant.
Are you saying you need them on?
Oh, they're really good. These are prescription, and they have readers.
Okay,
So the main thing is all prescription. And then the bottom part is a reader for even more Like if I pop my phone up right now, I can see that really good.
do you need your phone? Are you going to post an Instagram video of you boating
Maybe
or something? No, you don't tweet anymore. Nor should you. I was the one responsible for getting you off that cesspool.
Well, it is a cesspool, and I would like to. I'll give you credit for a lot of things you've done for us at Channel 2, but getting me off Twitter is not necessarily one of them.
How about
I've hated it for years.
How about programming your entire station?
That's a big thing.
Okay, thank you.
Remember when it was all that jazz?
Yeah.
Which you blatantly stole from the movie, but then
No, that was an original. I don't know what you're referring to. That was an original idea by me.
But anyway,
Dave
point
Fox.
taken.
Dave Fox is live in studio, looking somewhat relaxed today. Did you have the day off?
No, I'm going in right now. I'm caught up.
Okay.
And for me, that's big.
So you look like. Are you wearing that shirt on television tonight?
All right.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I'll have a tie on.
Oh, this is a missionary shirt, the old short sleeve trick shirt. I see.
I had a grandson come home from his mission.
Which
last
one?
Week. Dax.
Shout out Dax. Where'd he go?
He went to Riverside Spanish speaking.
Okay.
And he can rip the language, man. Unbelievable. You know how, you've been to the homecoming talk.
Yes, Dave.
Did they let you in the building for those?
At the time, yes.
Okay.
I'll have to update the card at this point.
And a lot of times they'll say part of it in the whatever language.
Yes, they
would
will.
Be at.
Yeah.
Well, so we have dinner every Sunday, and he gave the blessing on the food. He ripped through that I couldn't believe it in Spanish, and was phenomenal.
I always used to get a kick out of like a kid who I knew who could barely speak English.
And then they could do
And then he would get home and be like, hey, do you mind if I bear my testimony in German? And then it's just like spot on.
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't you utilize those talents to learn better English, dude?
I actually told Dax that after he gave the prayer the other day. I was like, I don't know what you said, but it sounded almost as better than your English.
Good for Dax, man. And welcome home, right? Did he return with honor?
He did. And he had a little party last night at his grandma and grandpa's house.
Isn't that you?
All these return missionaries and sisters were all there. The guys that he hung out before he went, it was so fun to see them all. They're all like 2 weeks home.
Did you have cheese quesadillas for the group, or what'd you do for food?
They had pizza.
Nice. Because Dave is a noted fan of a cheese quesadilla.
I am. I do like good cheese quesadilla.
Yeah, because you're 12 in reality.
They're really good.
So
and I cut them up into little pizzas.
Yeah, as 12-year-olds do. Right. The story there is I once offered to buy the staff at KUTV dinner, and so I stopped at a Mexican restaurant, and Tim, like a normal person, orders a burrito. Someone
all
else,
kinds of stuff on it.
Yeah, and someone else was like, I'll take an enchilada, and Dave's like, yeah, do they have cheese quesadillas? I'm like, what?
That's all I wanted.
You wanted, and you got the chocolate milk on the side, too, because I had to order a kid's cheese quesadilla.
That's how that ended. Okay.
I think you got a cookie, too. Yeah. Well, good for you.
Important.
All right, busy time of year for you.
Oh, man, but it's fun.
High school football gets going this week.
Yes, it does.
Are the usual players the same players as far as the teams that are expected to be good?
To a degree, the big question mark is Corner Canyon because, a little bit like Utah losing Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, Corner Canyon lost Eric Kerr. He's now the head coach at Weber State. Really curious to see how that works out for him. So they have a new coach who is a longtime assistant with Eric Kerr. Casey Sotero is his name.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can keep that momentum going, that culture going.
Sure.
But other than that, yeah, that region down there, you got Sky Ridge. Our opening night game is Sky Ridge, Mountain Ridge, two great teams. And our second night game is Corner Canyon Davis, two more great teams.
Yeah.
The usual suspects up top. Other than that, it's there's just a lot of good teams. We'll see where it goes.
How are our Braves? The Bountiful
The
Braves.
Bountiful Braves, baby. My grandson plays for them. I'm excited for them.
Which one?
Dax's brother, Madden.
Well, they named him Madden, so he had no choice. He had to play football.
Right.
Okay.
And he's good. He's a senior.
What position?
He plays linebacker and tight end.
Is it Madden Fox?
No, it's Madden Parks.
Madden Parks.
Yeah, Daxton Parks.
Okay, very
The
nice.
only Fox in the family of my children would be your buddy Andrew. Fox
Shout out
on-
Andrew.
Fox on a box.
Yeah.
So Bountiful, I think they'll be okay. You remember a couple of years ago they had Emerson Guileman who went on to BYU. They won the state title. And I don't know that they're a championship team, but they'll compete.
Okay.
So.
And are you televising every Friday night?
Every Thursday and Friday.
Every Thursday and Friday, we
Yes.
got high school football on KMYU.
And KJazz.
And KJazz.
Yeah, we simulcast on both stations. It's a little daunting because I have to go through that schedule and get a bunch of coaches to be willing to move their Friday games to Thursday.
Uh-huh.
But it's not any different than the NFL giving teams a call and saying, "Oh, you're playing on Thursday."
It's a little different than the NFL.
It's
but
not. It is.
a little bit.
It seems like the same.
Yeah, well, I think the money's a little different as far as the
Slightly.
incentives to maybe move to a certain window here or there.
But they're always willing to cooperate, and it's a good schedule we have this year. There's one day I got to tell you really quick on week 3.
Okay.
There's a Saturday where we broadcast 3 games, and they're all big local teams:
Okay.
Skyridge, Lehigh, Orem, against out-of-state teams, including like Mater Dei, for instance.
Sure, yeah.
And all 3 games are at West High School.
How's Porter? Is it Summit County? Was that the high school?
Come on, man. South Summit.
Summit County has high schools.
How's
in it.
South Summit this year?
Oh, South Summit. I think North Summit might be a little better.
Oh,
Stop it.
those are
The
fighting
Braves,
words.
by the way.
The North Summit Braves?
Well, why did they get to keep Braves, and yet our alma mater was forced to switch? I don't know.
they're brave.
Because it was COVID and I had a man bun and things were weird. So what's that? What's your mascot?
Wildcats.
I like that. The South Summit Wildcats. I like that.
You're a South Summit guy, huh? Good
Yes,
for you.
Dave.
Noted talented wide receiver in there.
Pretty sure you
Really?
flew a helicopter to one of my games.
Remember
Yeah,
when-
I might have.
Remember when you used to fly helicopters
Yeah.
to games? Was
Well,
that during the Fox's Den days?
That was so fun. A little after that.
So
we did
during-
that. Had a great time doing it, though. Mid 2000s.
So it was like the Fox Den Brad Thomas era.
Exactly.
Okay.
A little after Brad Thomas. What year did you graduate?
2013.
Yeah, that's in the heat of when we were. That's probably right at the tail end when we were flying the helicopter around.
Why'd you stop that?
It cost several $1 million a year just to run the helicopter.
So budgetary issues.
So I like what I'm doing way better. Calling the games is a lot more fun than flying around. The helicopter is fun, but
We got the same broadcast team. We got my guy Alema,
Yeah.
and then
Frankie.
Dolce, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay.
they speak highly of you. You have Frank on here occasionally, don't you? Or-
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
This is a Frank Dolce free radio show. I'll tell you that much right now. Alema's welcome to join anytime, and obviously you're our friend.
Yeah.
But no,
I'll tell that. I'll
this
tell
is
Alema that.
this is a no-fly zone for Frank.
They're starting a podcast alongside you.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Alema's probably starting a pod.
You're leery of Frank actually showing up.
You've done shows with Frank. That's
He's always there.
That the football roundtable you guys
well,
do. It's
if
always
he's not coming, he'll tell us in advance.
the most reliable one is Riley Jensen by far.
Yeah, you're right.
And then sometimes it's Riley and Alema. And then occasionally Frank will show up and say the same thing.
Well, I don't think he can do that in this case because one thing if you've learned nothing about this business is that you're responsible for that every week.
Oh no,
it's not a calling in sick kind of thing.
No, I very much have learned this
Yeah.
baptism by fire.
Yeah, it's your deal, and if it's no matter what happens, you've got to figure out a way to make it work. You've had to adjust.
I will summarize after 8 months of doing TV. I'm now a vet, so I will summarize TV with a very reductive statement. Are you ready?
Okay.
What TV is the people that have offices upstairs saying, we think this is a good idea. Now you go figure it out.
Wow, you did come to that.
Took me 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured that out really quick too, about 30 years ago.
Yeah. And you kept going.
Uh-huh.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Um,
Keep rolling along.
all right. So
Love it.
for me, fall camp means it's back.
Oh, and it's the best.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm 100% football guy.
Yeah, we always do the whole like, hey, it's Big 12 media days, so now football's back. No. Fall camp to me, okay, it's here.
Mm-hmm.
We're 23 days away from Utah's first game. We had Mac in studio last week, which was awesome.
How's he doing? I
He's
haven't
great.
seen him. Okay,
He's great.
Good.
Yeah, he
That guy.
he came in studio for an hour, salient, entertaining, and told great stories. He came right out of the gates. He's like 10 wins. He's like 10 wins. The expectation for Morgan is 10 wins. I was like, dude,
you need
wow.
him on your podcast. The stories he could. I don't know if you could do it in half an hour.
Yeah, the challenging part with a guy like Mac is 24 minutes and 15 seconds. And by the way, it better be 24 minutes or 15 seconds or you're getting a freaking email.
Well, plus your closing segment. But yeah.
Well, yes, you have to. I went 7 seconds over and got an email about that. That's ridiculous. Edit 7
TV
seconds.
is down to the second. It's not like here where you can, cheat the segment.
But
whatever.
But what do you think? 10 wins. To me, 10 wins.
Yeah.
I feel like 10
Okay.
wins would be a huge success for Utah.
And I've thought about this because I was listening to you and Porter after you had. Did you have Stevenson?
We had Sly on, yeah.
So, and you said, hey, if you're Utah and I came out and you said you get 10 wins this year, you'd take it in a heartbeat. And remember, I was on with you maybe a month ago, and I think I might even had them at 11.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to soften a little bit. And I'll tell you why.
You want to double down your Jazz bet that you're definitely going to lose now that Walker Kessler's a Laker?
No. I'm still good on the Jazz.
Oh, Ruth's Chris, baby. 24-ounce porterhouse. Maybe a ribeye.
Ruth's Chris drive-through.
Couple of sides, a steak to go so I can have steak and eggs the next morning.
Oh, it does sound
You are going to spend so much money on me when you lose this bet.
At any rate, where are we going on?
11 wins, Utah.
Now
You're starting
I'm
to
worried about
decide.
the Ruth's
You
Chris
should
thing.
be worried. You are
What
going
was
to
the
lose.
number on that? 45?
No, it was.
was
They're going to
45.
be a top 6 seed. They're a playoff team.
Okay.
The over/under came out. It's 34.5. They're 11th in the West. Ruth's
I'm
Chris for
sticking with that.
days.
I'm sticking with that. But back to the Utes. One of the sentiments you hear whenever you get into these discussion about 10 wins is that their schedule's not that difficult. And as I start to go through it, who's to really say? Okay, Houston's a pretty good team. Now they get them here. BYU obviously is a really good team. They have to go to Cincinnati. All right, Cincinnati's not a great team, but that's a tough place to play. They go to Iowa State. I don't think we know much about Iowa State with a new coach. Arizona. I mean, there's just a number of games on there where you can't just say, oh, that's an easy win. That's where I'm starting to soften on this whole thing. And I don't know. I'm not sure they can get to 10 wins.
Dave, this conference is crazy. The Big 12, you can count on the Big 12 every year to have at least 2 or 3 teams that are way better than we thought they were going to be. And 2 or 3 teams that you thought would be upper echelon that either get injured or whatever it is.
And that's my point. I just think some of these teams are better than we're giving them credit for. They don't have to play Texas Tech, which I guess is a positive, but still, you can't just assume that they're going to beat all these teams. I mean, even West Virginia, they're not a great team, but who knows? Maybe every year is a new year, and I just feel like there's going to be some hiccups along the way, especially with all the coaching changes and those 2 lines. There's nothing more difficult to overcome than struggling offensive and defensive lines. You know that. Every football pundit will tell you that's where it starts. And you know what? I think the rest of the nation, we have a different view here in Salt Lake City. You don't see the Utes popping up in a ton of top 25 polls right now. You barely see Michigan, by the way. Does that surprise you at all?
Michigan is in every single top 25
but
poll.
they're like way low. I saw them number 25 in one the other day.
Joel Klatt has them at 10.
Well, Klatt's being much nicer to
The
him.
coaches poll is 15. Michigan is in all of them.
But are you surprised they're at 15?
No.
Or 20?
No,
in some?
15 feels right.
Huh.
They lost a lot.
Yeah.
And look, and the other
But they
thing.
got Whittingham.
Well, but they also have a bear of a schedule. I think Michigan can win 10 games. And look, I think Utah can win 10 games, but I think your point is very important. I mean, again, Joel Klatt has Arizona in his top 25. He has Houston in his top 25.
You're a Joe Klatt guy.
Oh, I love Klatt. He's great.
For you.
Yeah, he's really good.
Okay, well,
I think
point taken. I just think this is going to be a little more difficult than people give him.
I think the non-con is all manageable, but when Bronco Mendenhall comes into your stadium with his team, you're going to have to play. I'm not saying Utah State's going to be Utah, but I think the non-con is manageable.
Well, even Arkansas. Sweet.
Iowa State has a brand new team. Kansas at home is gettable. So is Colorado on the road. Houston at home is one of those tricky deals.
Yeah, real tricky.
Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews, he thinks Utah is going to be 8-0 going into the BYU game. If they're 8-0 going into the BYU game, I think they're probably going to win 10 games. But the stretch that will tell us everything is BYU at home, at Arizona, at TCU. Yeah. That's your 3-game stretch. And if you put Cincinnati 2 weeks prior, four games in a 5-game stretch is Houston, BYU, Arizona, TCU. Yeah, okay, so you know, if they get every other game, that's 8 wins. Then they have to get 2 of those 4 games, which I think they can do. I'm not predicting it, but it's not out of the realm.
That's why I've just softened a little bit on that. And then again, I hope the best for Morgan Scalley. I really do. But especially on that offensive side, they've got a lot. They've got holes to fill, almost completely new coaching staff, an offensive line coach who hasn't coached in college yet. I mean, it's just going to be tough. You can't just make a blanket statement that they're going to win all these games because they don't have that tough of a schedule. Because I think that schedule is tougher than you believe.
Well, the strength of schedule metric, which I don't love, Texas Tech has the easiest schedule in the conference.
Well, part of it's because they're really good.
No,
so everything becomes easier.
Nothing to do with strength of schedule, how good you are. It's the teams that you play.
Actually, it does, Spence.
It has literally nothing to do with this metric.
If you're really good, everything's easy.
Dave, strength of schedule is the opponent that you play.
I get it.
Texas Tech has the easiest schedule. Utah actually has the 4th easiest schedule. BYU's mid-tier. The hardest schedule in the Big 12 this year is Arizona State. Arizona State, Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU, Colorado, your top 5. So the schedule, because you avoid Tech and get BYU at home, is manageable. But we have a lot of people up on the Hill that are doing things for the first time. Mm-hmm. And look, Morgan's been in the program as a coach for 19 years. If you include as a player 24 years or whatever. It's not like he's new at coaching, but he's never been a head coach. Kevin McGivern's well-established, but this is a different level. Colton Swan, same deal. You referenced Jordan Gross, who everyone loves. He's never coached in college. We don't know what the offensive line looks like. The good news is, I think, is the 2 biggest question marks are the staple of Utah football. It's offensive line, defensive line. And you never really worry about that because Utah always seems to figure that out.
Well, and the defense in general over the years, they've always seemed to figure that out. Sharif Shaw being there, still coaching that secondary, that's a big part of that. And the head coach being a defensive guy who ran the defense for so long. But you know, your point is well taken, and it's there has to be some growing pains, especially with these coaches. And you know what, Scout? Think about the BYU Utah game last year. How many times did Winningham go for it on 4th down?
Analytics, Dave.
4.
Analytics, Dave.
How many times did he make it? I don't think he made any of them.
Are you anti-analytics?
No, I'm more gut than analytics.
Well, wit usually is too, which made that all the more bizarre.
Yeah, it really did. So those are the decisions that are going to face Morgan Scalley, and they're going to come at you in a hurry. And you know, you're right. Those are the things. When the defense came off the field for the last 20-some years he was there, he was on the sideline talking with them.
Yeah.
He didn't have to worry about anything else. Well, those days are gone now. So it's going to be fun to watch, though. I'm 100% behind Morgan and what I think he can do. But I just feel like there's going to be more growing pains than we might have anticipated.
I just get tired of this business where people speak in absolutes like they know what's going to happen. I think it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm genuinely curious to see how this thing works out.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can say with pretty much all confidence that I know the Utes are going to win their opener. After that, all bets are off.
You're going to go out on a limb and say they beat Idaho?
I'm going to stretch that and say I'd say they're going to cover, but I'm not sure there'll even be a line.
Well, you're nothing if not bold, Dave.
Well, it's like you said. What do you say on your promo? No hard takes or what?
I don't know if I told you the story. I was at my cousin's wedding.
Hot takes. That's it.
No hot takes. I can't remember what it was. I just read the script. Yeah. But I was at a wedding about a month ago, and as I was leaving, someone came out. I had no idea who this person was, and he goes, "Not carrying water for any teams that don't deserve it."
Yeah,
huh?
There you go. That's in your promo too.
It confused me for a second. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's on that commercial. It looks like from 1987."
That commercial runs a lot.
Yeah,
we promote the crap out of that thing.
Yes, you do. So, all right, Dave, what's coming up tonight on Talking Sports?
Well, thanks for carrying my water during this segment.
No, I don't carry water for bad people that don't deserve it. It's part of the promo.
We have RSL's playing tonight. What do you think of that whole Leagues Cup thing? By the way, now RSL has to win and get some help if they want to keep playing. But I don't. It's part of sport that I don't really
So I was unfamiliar with it, but the people that really know the ecosystem actually they think it's a cool opportunity for MLS to show what it is against Liga MX, which and ultimately it is a pathway to CONCACAF for the teams, which would be cool. I mean, that's the reality of RSL maybe playing like a big European club.
Yeah. Okay.
But no Gozo now. They've moved on from him.
Well, I think we all knew that was coming eventually. I kind of had hoped he might get through the season, but they're in that window now, right? Which is why the MLS is changing their league year.
It's just MLS. Don't say the MLS. It's not the Major League Soccer.
Did I really say it that way? Because I'm usually a pet peeve on that.
Trey has beat that into my head.
MLS is altering their schedule.
Correct.
Which is going to be very interesting. But I understand now why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because then this sort of thing would be happening in the offseason.
That's correct.
Instead of right in the middle of the season.
Correct.
So, but it's too bad. I mean, great for Gozo, but, man, he was fun and
very good.
Homegrown kid. You're thinking, wow, this is the future. But it just goes to show you that MLS
there you go.
Still has a long way to go.
Yeah.
Before it becomes what is going on over in Europe. But at any rate, we have that game tonight. Kayla Kiesel will be covering that live for us. Jenna Fink was up at Ute practice today because Tuesday's our defensive day. So we'll see what she has on that. And we'll share some of the new high school player cards. You know those player cards I go out and get on media day.
Yes, you're feeding into the biggest problem with youth sports, where these kids think they're bigger than they are.
Yeah.
But they seem to enjoy it.
They love it.
Dave, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thanks, man. I'm going to put up my sunglasses now and head on out.
You're allowed to wear sunglasses outside.
Okay. Tomorrow night, by the way, I have you. 5 questions with Spence.
Yeah, I loved your text. Let's do 5 mediocre questions on Wednesday.
I think I actually said something worse than that, and I upgraded it to mediocre.
Well, let's just set the bar a little higher, please.
I'll have Timmy help me.
Dave Fox, everybody.
Thanks,
brought to you today by our friends at Advanced Window Products. Take advantage of their summer window special. If your house is hot and you have your air conditioning on, it is your windows. If your house gets cold in the winter and you have your heater jacked up, you need new windows. So save money and take advantage of the special from our friends at Advanced Window Products. You can save $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more if you dial 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it here on ESPN 700. So yesterday we brought you the story of the golfer who faked a hole-in-one and was caught and had to resign his membership in a country with a country club. Well, as the internet is wont to do, now it turns out Zach Holland is this gentleman's name. Not only is he accused of faking a hole-in-one, he's now being accused of being a sandbagger. Why are you wearing your sunglasses? Take those off, man.
It's bright. You got the window open.
Do you know what a sandbagger is?
He's fixing the handicap, huh? Is that what he's doing? He's not playing great golf, and then tournament time he turns it up?
Correct. So a gentleman named Yip Strickler, that guy.
Great name.
Shout out Yip. He has a social media account where he goes around the country and honestly is doing the Lord's work because he reveals sandbaggers. So sandbaggers, as Porter alluded to, they basically, if they're playing a regular round, they go about their business to manipulate their score in order to have benefits when they play in tournaments. So are you ready, before we say goodnight, to learn the 10 tails of a sandbagger?
Yes.
Okay. 10 tails of a sandbagger. Number one, few, if any, recent scores. So if you look at their gin handicap, they claim they haven't played very much, even though they're playing. Number two, posting scores away from home course too much. Number three, purposely misses tap-ins. Number four, picks up tap-ins so the score doesn't count. Number five, poorly dressed. Apparently is the sign of a sandbagger. Number six, doesn't warm up. Number seven, tanks the round. Number eight, intentionally uses the wrong club. Number nine, gags when closing in. That's weird phrasing. But let's say a match has been closed out by the 15th hole. The sandbagger will stumble in, knowing that the day's winnings are secured, with the stumble helping pad the handicap, which is a distant cousin to the final one, which is getting drunk at the end.
Well, that's the sandbagger and like everyone I've ever played golf with.
Most golfers, yeah. There's an interesting dynamic where a lot of like grinder golfers are clearly degenerates.
Well, and when the wheels fall off, it tends to be, hole 14, 15, so on.
So they're claiming that this is claiming that sandbaggers intentionally have one or two extra pops to play poorly and blame it on the booze.
Okay.
As someone who worked at a golf course, do these dynamics resonate with you?
A little bit. I don't know that we had many sandbaggers. I think guys were trying to get some good handicaps, good rounds out, but it's out there.
The biggest issue by far is slow golfers who do not let the foursomes behind them play through.
This is a thing.
That's the biggest issue.
I'll say mostly on like the tournament stuff. Haven't been involved in a few of those. It was a ringer that was more of an issue. Where like a guy would bring in his buddy who just got off the Korn Ferry Tour to come in and play the member guest, even though they had like a very loose relationship, if any at all. And then they'd win the member guest tournament, of course.
Mm-hmm. Just keep an accurate handicap, and if you're slow, let people play through, and most importantly, don't play slow. It's like my grandpa used to say, rest in peace, Triple L. I don't care if you're good or bad, just keep it moving. That's it. Bottom line.
There you go.
Just keep it moving. All right, fun show today, Porter. What's coming up on a Wednesday edition of the program?
Wednesday edition of The Drive. Richard Smitty Smith will be in talking NBA offseason and such. Maybe some Utes as well with our Utes fan, Richard Smitty Smith. Cindy Ball Maloney's going to stop by. She and the AUSL Talons just wrapped up a repeat championship for their professional softball league. We have RSL in action tonight against FC Juarez. So we're going to check in with Real Salt Lake and potentially Apple TV folk on that side, and we'll go from there.
All right, there you go. That'll be a fun Wednesday edition of the program. We'll probably have some sound from camp as well. Special thank you today to Matt Brown, in addition to Stevenson Sylvester, Bill Riley, and Dave Fox. If you missed any of the sound from the show, go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download the mobile app and take us on the go. And then support our podcast page. If you miss any of the show at any point, it's all up online for your consumption. Our podcast page is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Coming up tomorrow, Reality Check with Spence Checketts will feature the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Tuesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.